Tēnā koutou katoa and welcome to the Ashburton District Council Meeting for Wednesday the 22nd of July. I'd like to welcome councillors in the room. We have Councillor Ellis online. We also have Matt Johnson and Stuart Cross joining us from Morrison Low, and they will come into the conversation later when we get to that item. Also welcome staff, members of the public and those watching at home. I'm going to start this meeting with a whakatauki. He aha te kai a te rangatira, he kōrero, he kōrero, he kōrero. What is the food of a leader? It is discussion, it is discussion, it is discussion. I'll call now for any apologies. We don't have any extraordinary business. I haven't been notified of any declarations of interest. Do I have any? Councillor Moffat.
Sorry, I don't know which item number it is.
Item number 12.
Item number 12.
Yes, you have a conflict, so I'll ask you to step back from the table and refrain from any discussion on that matter. Thank you. When we come to it, so confirmation of minutes. So on page 4, we have the minutes from the meeting from the 30th of June. I'm looking at page 4 and I'll go through. Are there any updates or amendments to be made on page 4, page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 or 15. Can I have a mover and a seconder that they are correct? Councillor Cameron, Councillor Todd. All those in favour? Aye. Carried, thank you. We also have the minutes from the Three Waters Committee meeting on the 24th of June. Any corrections to be made on page 16 or 17? If not, a mover that we receive those minutes, please. Councillor Gilkison, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour, aye. Against, carried, thank you. Item number 6, we have the Stockwater Transition Working Group. So we have the minutes there from the 24th of June. Are there any corrections to those on page 18 and 19? If not, can I have a mover that we receive those minutes? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Moffat. All those in favour, aye. Against, carried, thank you. And we have some recommendations from that meeting, and I'll take them in 3 parts. So we have the Bushside Race Network proposed closure. Do I have someone who would like to move that?
I'll move that, please, in the whole 1 to 4.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wilson. Any debate? Councillor Gilkison.
Sorry, just with the last closures, we had full reports go alongside them. We're not going to get them this time to digest properly, or?
They would have been in the Stockwater. They would have been in the agenda.
But we can recirculate those too, so you can see
I mean,
the detail.
I've read them, but just because that's what happened last time, we had the full reports in the minutes.
Thank you.
So I don't know if anyone else was feeling that way. But.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Cameron, would you like to speak to this?
No. It's this race network proposed closure has gone through the process of the Stockwater through consulting with the community, through a report, and it's come to this conclusion.
Thank you. Put the motion, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried, thank you. The next one is the Stony Creek Intake and Race Network. So there's a motion there for the Stony Creek. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Wilson. A seconder, Councillor Hooper. And the date of that closure is the 30th of June 2027. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Wilson.
Again, it's been through quite a rigorous process where we've talked to all the people on it, we've talked to mana whenua, where we've looked environmentally, and I think this is the right outcome for this race.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye. Against, carried. Thank you. The last one is the Clearwell Springs intake. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Cameron, seconder. Councillor Wilson. Any debate? Councillor Wilson.
You will note that item 3, the Clearbrook Springs intake, a spring feed enclosure intake and associated race net, will not alter this to stop the natural flow of water, so the natural flow of water will still occur in this one.
Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to the minutes from the Methven Community Board from the 29th of June. For those who were there, are there any corrections? If not, can I have someone move that we receive those minutes, please? Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Gilkison. Any questions on those minutes? Councillor Wilson?
Item number 3, the enhanced security cameras around in the Methven, does that fit within a policy? How does that work? Because I understand when Rikaya put them in, they had to put them on private property to fall within the rules as it was, sort of thing. So could someone perhaps enlighten me on that?
Ian or Tony? Or Tanya, who was at the meeting? Yeah. Tanya.
You're correct that we do have a CCTV policy that sets criteria around the new CCTV cameras in the district. These haven't been assessed in accordance with that policy because it's been done by private individuals, so an individual entity.
In that case, can they put private cameras on council land?
My understanding is there is some on council land,
Okay,
but they've been installed. Yeah.
thank you. Councillor Cameron?
I have another question, but I'll just do a follow-on for that. So is there private cameras on council land, or are they council cameras on council land? Just to clarify.
They're private cameras owned by the trust. The footage is only going to the police, and we've been told that only the police can view the footage.
So, and that's not in accordance with our CCTV policy, is that correct?
They're on private
Land.
land.
Our policy doesn't cover private.
Oh, I thought you said private cameras on public land. Private cameras on private land. Okay. My question relates to, why do we want number plate recognition camera in the centre of town?
I can possibly answer that because I have been to the police station and had a look at the cameras. It's recording, it picks up stolen vehicles. So if a stolen vehicle goes past the camera, it recognises that number plate and it alerts police.
Do we have a vehicle plate, number plate recognition camera in Ashburton or any other centres?
Not sure. There's possibly one in Rikaya, I think, because the same group has been putting some cameras up in Rikaya, Ian Hyde.
Yeah, just, sorry, not under our control.
No,
We
they're
don't,
not ours. They're police and the private group. Councillor Wilson?
Or just to clarify that, the Rakai ones are on private land, and that's why they're on private land, because they couldn't go on council land. So they're private land looking out rather than council land looking in or around. So I'd be interested to understand that if this is on council land, I would have thought, because it's in the Methven Community Board minutes, it almost has to be within council policy almost, I would have thought, if it's otherwise, because we're endorsing it almost, aren't we, effectively, by being here. I'm just asking that question with regards to policy.
And I think this group came to the community board because they had received some funding, so they were coming to report on the funding that they'd used. Yep. Councillor Cameron.
It sort of might be off track a wee bit. So, are you allowed? You're allowed a private camera on private land, observing public people on public land, which is if they're pointing out, which I guess they are, to get number plate recognition.
We can't control what happens on private land, so the answer is yes. Yeah, it's a very common complaint, particularly to the privacy officer, privacy commissioner. People don't feel it's fair or just, but there's no ability to control what happens on public land.
No way to manage it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay. So we are now on to the report on simplifying local government, Ashburton District Council next steps. And welcome Tony and Mark up to the table. And just before I hand over to Tony, so obviously there has been a lot of work done on this, and I'd like to thank staff for everything that they have done with putting the survey together, collating it all, and providing us with a lot of information. But I'd also like to thank all the councillors as well for taking the time to be at our Talk It Up Tuesday and all the different workshops that we've had on this. Tony's going to give us a quick overview, and then I thought what we would do is we would go first to Matt and Stuart from Morris and Lowe, and they can give us an overview on their report. Then we would go to the analysis report and have some discussion on that, and then we would end by going through the survey results. And I'd quite like to go through the comments just page by page, and if there's anything that you would like to mention, that would be a good time to do that. So it will take a little bit of time, but I think it deserves that time, and then we can look at the recommendations and go through those one by one. So I'll hand over to Mark and Tony, and kick us off. Thank you.
Magic. Thank you very much, Mayor Liz. As discussed and introduced by the Mayor, our purpose today with the presentation is just to help step you through the supporting documents that are sitting as a part of the Council agenda before it gets into the debate side of things. So as you understand, the Government's Simplifying Local Government Reform Programme requires councils to consider future governance arrangements and choose between participation in the voluntary Head Start pathway or await the proposed compulsory backstop process after the elections in 2028. Council's undertaken 2 phases of community engagement with a combined total of over 1,200 individual responses. Council's also been having discussions with neighbouring councils and further analysis of potential governance arrangements with elected member colleagues. I think it's important to say that the community feedback demonstrates there's strong support for maintaining local representation, for retaining local decision making as much as possible, for protecting district assets, and for ensuring fair representation of our district at whatever the future may look like, as well as maintaining affordable service delivery. So the further analysis that's been undertaken on the shortlisted governance options approved by Council on the 10th of June, this is to help provide a stronger understanding of the opportunities, the risks and the implications associated with each option, set within the context of a wider Canterbury picture. And in addition, we've also got Morris and Lowe, who were commissioned to carry out work for us to provide a high-level assessment of the potential economies of scale that may arise from the different local government reorganisation options that we were considering as a council. So this is all the sort of the supplementary information that hopefully helps with your understanding of what the trade-offs could be. I'd also just like to acknowledge we've got Lou Dunstan joining us virtually as well. Lou's been in a critical part of the assessment work as we've gone through the last couple of weeks also. So she's available to help answer any detailed questions as we go through. So we are working backwards through the order of the appendices. So we're going to start with Appendix 3, which is the Morrison Low work. I'll hand back to our Mayor.
Thank you. Matt and Stuart, can you hear us, see us? Oh, there you go.
You absolutely can, thank you. And can you confirm that you guys can hear us, or at least can hear me appropriately at the moment?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear, thank you.
Fantastic. Awesome. Hey, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk through our reports on predominantly the financial implications of the amalgamation proposals that you've had put forward in front of you to respond to the simplifying local government / Head Start pathway that's been presented to you. Before I get too stuck into it, just a very brief introduction from myself. So I'm Stu Cross. I am the director here at Morrison Low. I lead our finance and economic service line, but I've been involved in fact, I've spoken to you all before about local water done well some time ago, but I've been involved in local water done well and all of our local government reform and amalgamation work for quite some time, and particularly more recently around the Head Start stuff and the financial analysis in particular that we've been doing around Head Start proposals across the country. I'm going to take you all through briefly, I guess, the approach that we've taken to doing this analysis and some of the, I guess, limitations and some of the key things that you can take away from the way that we've done this. And then I'll let Matt Johnson just go through the various actual outcomes and the options that we've modelled and talk through what some of that looks like. So I guess just as a starting point, one of the challenges we've had with Head Start in general is obviously the same challenge that everyone in the country is grappling with, which is 90 days to make a decision, and within that time frame having to actually identify what options you even want to look at before you even start modelling them in bits and pieces. So to respond to that, one of the things that we've done is we've decided that it's not terribly useful for us to produce 10-year long-term plan models where we bolt every council together and then apply some efficiency assumptions. For one, that's quite a time-consuming process. But secondly, it would require a whole pile of assumptions to be made around potential efficiency gains that may or may not be achievable across the sector, and we'd need to have a pretty good understanding about what our future operating model is. So to instead respond to the government's challenge around identifying whether there are financial efficiencies here, what we've done is we've taken a benchmarking approach where we've looked at the costs of delivering local services across the country. And we've looked at regional councils, unitary authorities, and territorial authorities across the country of different size and scale. What that data doesn't tell us is what that cost is per, I guess, unit of level of service, if you will. So what we can do is we can compare cost to scale of an organisation, but we don't know how much that level of service has changed within that cost set as well. So I guess that's the big caveat to the information that we present here, is that while we've got a great deal of certainty about how costs increase with size, there is an underlying assumption in here that actually within there are also differences in level of service. So smaller rural councils typically providing a lower level of service than what you might receive in a larger metropolitan council. So while the costs are potentially changing as we get larger, so too is the level of service, and that's the bit that's probably buried in here, that we can't tell you exactly what that change in level of service will be, except to say that you can expect that there are potential changes in level of service that exist there. I think so what we've done is we've undertaken a benchmarking approach. What we did is we looked at all of the different types of costs that different councils have reported to Statistics New Zealand, who group costs in a consistent way across all of the councils in the country. And that was really important to us because when you start looking at councils' long-term plans or councils' annual reports, outside of water, roading, and maybe solid waste, councils group all the rest of their activities quite differently, and they put different structures around it. So finding a data source that was regionally and nationally consistent in the way that it grouped it was really important for us. When we've looked at those costs, we've taken away depreciation and interest for a couple of reasons. One is that those costs relate predominantly to the assets and the existing debt you have, and the other reason being that when you amalgamate with your neighbours, you are inheriting their debt and you are inheriting their assets. There are no efficiencies that come from that. There might be a minor adjustment to the interest rate, but it's not going to be significant enough for us to make any assumptions about in our modelling. Because we're looking at a national data set, what we're doing is when we're actually modelling these things, we're looking at what effectively the cost of a new council of an equivalent scale or with equivalent attributes to the combined groups that we're exploring would be. So if you've looked through our report, you'll see that what we did is we looked at all of those different cost categories and we looked at the different things that could be driving those costs that relate to scale. So that could be land area, it could be population, it could be the number of consents. There's a whole pile of different attributes that we've got there. Those have all been used to effectively work out, when we look at each of the individual groupings, what a set of costs might look like when we bring it together. So what you're presented with in our report is effectively, if this proposed council under whatever option we're looking at, so if it's under option 1 or option 2, if this council actually existed in real life today, this is what we think the costs would fall within. This is the band of costs that we think it would fall within. And we present that as a range. The top end of that range is effectively the 5th percentile of confidence, and then the bottom end of that range is the 95th percentile. So when we present a range and we're presenting that number, if the efficiencies are between 6 and 18%, for example, the 18% would be from like the 5% best performing council for our benchmarking range, right? So we typically wouldn't suggest that you would be able to achieve that, and when we set that likely and unlikely efficiency band that you might also see in the report, that band relates to effectively where that 50th percentile sits, and it's not always right smack bang in the middle, but we're effectively saying we think you can do better than half the councils. We think you can do better than the worst performing half. We don't think you can do better than the top performing half. So we're trying to be a little bit cautious in our approach and our assessment there when we're pulling that together. So what it will tell you is roughly what we think the cost might be per ratepayer under each of the options that we've presented. What it doesn't tell you, and you would have picked this up, is we don't tell you how much the rates would be. And again, the reason we don't tell you how much the rates will be is that there are a whole pile of decisions that sit behind this that will determine what the rates actually are. So we would expect a new council to go through a rating review, just like your council will have at some point, and go through the revenue and financing policy and figure out where the cost should go and how it's going to allocate those costs out across different types of rates, whether it's targeted rates, whether it's general rates, or how they collect that money across their entire district or service area or region, whatever you want to call the new area that it deals with. We would expect that a new unitary authority would be liberal in its use of targeted rates, at least for a number of years. And when I say that, what I mean is we would expect that it would keep costs close to where they lie in terms of where it generates its rates from. When we do this benchmarking, we're doing this at a whole organisational level. So there are differences between where those costs lie and where they don't. So when you look at, again, at our report, tables 2 and 3 of our report go through the different activities that we've considered and what those different cost drivers are. And you'll see that a number of those cost drivers are actually related to urban populations or urban land areas. And what I would say when you're looking at these options is to remember that Ashburton District Council, for some of these options, is contributing a lot of that urban land area or a lot of that urban population, and is therefore potentially driving some of that cost or driving some of that level of service in those areas. I think the final thing I wanted to talk you through, I guess I'm going through all the the careful accountant caveats, and I would have been a really good lawyer because I like to go through all these different caveats. But one of the things the last thing I want to go through before we actually have a look at the different options, and I get Nat to take you through that, is that also in our report we do present a chart there. It's figure 2 in our report, but around how the different cost drivers and how our modelling fits the benchmarking. So how we compare the actual cost to the benchmarking. I guess the key takeaway I just want to point out there is there's a couple of pieces of information that are worth understanding before you get into it. One is that because our modelling is looking at a range of scale that goes from very small councils to very large councils, our modelling fits really, really well in the middle group, in the councils that are somewhat medium, around the medium-sized group, because we have a lot more of those councils in New Zealand. So we have a lot more certainty about what the costs might look like there. When we get to the councils like Kaikoura and Waimate District Council, they are obviously a lot smaller. They're on the edges of our modelling, so our modelling often won't be as good of a fit for those smaller councils. It is worth noting, though, that they also do bring in a much smaller portion of the cost because they are bringing in that much less scale in terms of our modelling there as well. Useful also to point out that almost exclusively across the group of councils that we're looking at here, with the exception of Waitaki District Council and potentially Huranui District Council as well, is that our benchmarking typically is saying that the costs are higher than what they actually are in real life. So when we are applying it, if anything, we're overestimating the costs. The reason our benchmarking could be higher, we can't give exact reasons for that. It could be that some of these councils have a lower level of service than the average level of service among the group of or scale of councils that we've got there. It could be that some of the councils are just more efficient than what other councils of a similar scale are. And if they are more efficient, then what we might be able to assume is that when you group them together, there's not so much opportunity for further efficiencies beyond their existing efficiencies. Or it could just be that the cost of doing service, of delivering service and doing business in some of these areas is cheaper, in which case you might also be able to assume it's lower. So I guess what I'm saying is you can't take too much away from this, from the comparison of the model fit, but what you can take is confidence that if anything, we are most likely to have overestimated the costs rather than underestimated the costs in any of those options we're presenting. I think that probably takes me to the end of what I wanted to talk you through in terms of what you should or shouldn't take away from this. The only other comment I guess to make is you will have also seen that for some of the options we've explored, we've been able to present a range of actual costs that the actual costs experienced amongst those councils, averaged out as a per property. For some of them, we're not able to do that. And they're the options that include part of a district. It's just really, really hard to get cost breakdowns at part of a district level. In fact, I suspect for some councils that would be a several month long process to be able to identify what those actual costs are for delivering services in part of the district versus another part, and even then you'd probably have a whole pile of assumptions sitting behind that to be able to get to the bottom of that answer. So with that, I'll hand over to Matt, who will introduce himself briefly before he moves on. We've got questions.
Yeah, we've got some questions. Thanks, Stuart. I've just got a quick one. So the first, or that figure 2, that excludes 3 waters, but then when you go down to the different options, they are excluding transport, but do they include 3 waters?
Sorry, no, they also exclude 3 waters because of the councils all having different 3 water delivery models. Yep. So we haven't wanted to include 3 waters because of it getting muddy if we do include them. Yep, thank you. I do appreciate that you guys are retaining 3 waters though.
Yeah, our CE, Hamish, has got a question.
Hi Stuart, thanks Mayor. Stuart, do you want to reflect on the assumptions you had to make in and around the regional council functions, given this reform is about forming unitary councils, and one of the things that we have found hard to do is obtain data from the regional council just for Ashburton, and I understand that because they don't collect it or spend it in that particular way, but it's very hard for us to assess the likely cost implications and how that matches existing rates paid to ECAN from our district with the cost of services that our district might enjoy. What sort of assumptions did you have to make in the formation of this work around unitary councils?
I'll let Matt answer specifically what we did for ECAN, because he did most of the deliberate work, but I'll talk more generally about regional councils, and that's a really good point, Hamish, and it's something we've experienced across the country as regional councils not necessarily being able to allocate out costs across the individual TAs that they service. And as you point out, that's because it's something that they actually don't have to do for any other reason other than to service a start proposal. In general, what we're having to do is take some really high level assumptions around rates take or around which councils are able to provide a reasonable amount of detail on, or population or number of rateable properties to allocate costs out across each of the regional councils. What that impacts in terms of our report is that any charts that have an actual component or an actual combined component, the yellow section there may be inaccurate because it may include a proportion of costs that does not reflect the actual proportion of costs because we haven't been able to get that data. It won't impact the left-hand side of those graphs or the graphs where we are showing the benchmarked result. That benchmarked result is based on the benchmarking of regional council functions across a range of scales that are there.
And the one particular function that we know skews things is public transport. And if you think of ECAN in particular, half their budget's public transport. We don't have that here other than a little bit of total mobility. And so I assume that's been eliminated in some fashion for the purposes of the comparisons.
Yeah, so we've removed public transport costs entirely because, and again, I think I talked about liberal use of targeted rates. Public transport is certainly one area where regional councils already utilise targeted rates quite specifically in terms of where the services are delivered. So we think those costs will sit where they lie. It's easier to remove them when you're looking at different council options and then be able to say, well, and we'd also pay our share of the public transport costs that we currently pay.
Great, thank you.
Any other?
But if Matt wants to explain it a little bit more in terms of the specific approach for ECAN.
Yeah, that would be good. There's no more questions at this stage, so we'll go over to Matt.
So just on that topic around ECAN, like Stu said, the majority of the costs were broken out based on the information that we did manage to get from them, which had a little bit of rate take and how they spend some of their money. So it did give us some percentages that we could use, but majority of it was attributed out through like population, rating base, and again, back to the how the costs were split across the different districts on the information that we did have. So it's kind of a combination depending on what was being particularly looked at. I will get into the rest of the report. So as Stu mentioned previously, benchmarking analysis that we undertook. There is only certain options that have actuals in them, these being 1, 2 and 4, and options 3 and 5 don't have actuals because we don't have a basis of actuals to point to because the non-standard TA boundaries. How we kind of accommodated this is we did also use a bunch of Stats NZ information around urban populations and how it kind of split falls, and that enabled us to be able to get the values that would be required for forming the benchmarking of those particular breakdowns. The results of this benchmarking that we've been looking at is also, as kind of Stu touched on, is just looking at the cost side. So you'll see in these graphs it's per rateable property. This may also look differently for the different areas, as like certain urban populations may be rated differently, as well as the rural kind of splits that happen in the options we're looking at. I'll start with option 1 in the report. in this option is Ashburton as a standalone unitary. You'll see that there is quite a bit of escalation in costs relating to regional functions of the council, regional council functions. This is because of obviously the economies of scale and the efficiencies that are gained from having a larger regional council and having to bring that all in-house and have the cost there. So that's the main contributing factor in why the costs look greater than the actual combined in this option. There is still that banding of efficiencies that you see at the top in the likely and unlikely band. However, overall the cost for this option is mostly an increase. In option...
Just got a question, Matt, from Councillor Cameron.
Thanks, Matt. Can you just help me understand, you've got in this bar graph, you've got unlikely efficiency band and likely efficiency band. Can you, unlikely means we're not going to see that and likely means we may see that, is that correct?
I think I touched on this before, so I jumped in front of me. But I sort of touched on this when I was talking about the benchmarking, right? And because we're using benchmarking and we're looking across the country, with any statistical analysis, you effectively just have a band of uncertainty, right, or a margin of error. And basically what we're saying here is that, I guess that boundary between the lightly shaded area and the more darkly shaded area in terms of those efficiency bands, that's the midpoint. That's where we think you're most likely to be able to achieve efficiencies. But if you were really poorly performing, or you were on the bottom, and that's probably a bit cruel for me to use the term poorly performing, but if you were on the margin of error that is more expensive, then you wouldn't even achieve those likely efficiencies. But we're saying we suspect that you would be able to achieve those. That will bring you down to that midpoint of the efficiency band. The other half is the other point, so that's between the midpoint and the 95th percentile, or the other end of the margin of error. And we don't think that realistically it is fair to expect that any amalgamated entity is going to achieve efficiencies of that magnitude. That's not to say it can't happen, and obviously that margin of error, there are councils, when we look at this in the graph and compare it back to actuals, that are doing that and that are achieving that. But that doesn't mean that we would expect that everyone's going to, and we certainly wouldn't want to set the benchmark that high, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
So a possibility to achieve, but there's a possibility you achieve it, but we don't think that it's a realistic possibility.
But I don't understand why it's stacked at the top of the bar graph, because it looks like an increased cost, and the likely is at the top and the unlikely is at the bottom.
So they're both sort of at the top. I guess it's so that when you and on figure 3, which is comparing option 1, it gets a little bit more complicated here. I think what we're trying to compare, I guess, is the absolute cheapest cost with the existing costs, and then adding on those costs on top to go, well, actually we're going to get a little bit higher. I agree that in this chart in particular, it looks like an additional cost because the costs of the combined entity are higher than they are in Ashburton. I think what you should view this as is the cost band could be as high as that very top. Down to the bottom. Yeah, I mean, I think that we put it at the top so that it's actually easier to read, but I appreciate that might not be the case for everyone, and that everyone has different ways of interpreting numbers in a visual way. This was the visual way that we thought would show a level of uncertainty about the costs at the top there.
No, thanks for that. Back to you, Matt.
I'll move on to option 2, which is figure 4. This shows us the inclusion and exclusion of Waitaki. It shows that with the inclusion of Waitaki, that there is potential savings in the regional council functions costs. And there is also a slight overall savings or efficiencies to be achieved between this. Some great operational efficiencies that may be achieved. You'll also see that there is a greater banding of that margin of error around the likely and unlikely efficiency bands for the inclusion of Waitaki. However, the option of including Waitaki is lower, and you can compare it against the actuals for the option 2 in this one, and you can also see that between the sum of all parts of this option, there is potentially some substantial efficiencies that could be gained from these options. I'll move on to option 3 and figure 5. So this again kind of comes back to that point of us not being able to compare against actuals in this case, but you'll see at the bottom there is that kind of a comparison of all options, which gives you that certainty around, well, what are we actually looking at between the different options, just on a benchmarked standpoint. Between the inclusion and exclusion of Kaikoura, they're relatively the same. And so these options, for a broad sense, are pretty much comparable in the benchmarking analysis that's been undertaken. I'll move on to option 4. Option 4, as again, it's kind of quite similar to option 1, Ashburton as a standalone. However, it includes the rural settlement element of it. So there again is a little bit of escalation in the in the regional council functions. However, there's still a potential for efficiencies gains between the actual costs and the benchmark analysis. However, you will see the unlikely band is above the actual combined, so the sum of parts of the capital. And so we would expect that this option would cost more than the sum of the parts of the actuals. I'll move down into option 5. This option, again, is standalone as it's got those rural components in it. And it's slightly lower than I just can't remember my notes on this one. Because this option includes non-standard territorial authority boundaries, it cannot be tested directly against the actual financial results. And then again, it kind of falls into the other category of we should be comparing that. These benchmarked options we're comparing against the ones that we have other comparables against. So it's across the multiple benchmarked options. And so you see down in the next figure in figure 7, we can kind of get that overview of being able to compare where these costs potentially sit in comparison to all of the options. And this kind of allows us to see, like under option 1, with Ashburton as a standalone, the quite large component of the regional council functions, and then relatively equal through the middle of options 2 and 3 of the regional council functions, are relatively on par with each other. And then options 4 and 5 are slightly more expensive.
I think just to jump in here, and I think just looking back to one of the things I said earlier on in this conversation is that it's really important when we're looking at these options, particularly options 3 and probably 5 as well, which have quite significant rural land areas in there and quite significant rural populations, is that is that, like I say, level of service and cost, and largely because of the level of service, in areas with significant urban populations is often higher than what we experience in rural areas, and that is fine, and there are good reasons for that. But because of that, the cost often sits with those urban areas. So while we have options 2 and 3 in particular, two less so because it maybe includes like Timaru, which has got a reasonable urban area to it, and similarly Oamaru. But some of those costs that are associated with delivering services in those areas would still likely lie within Ashburton or within some of those urban areas. So the cost experienced by people living in those urban areas would likely be higher than what is coming through in those graphs, because that graph is an organisational average. It's not a cost for Ashburton ratepayers, which we can't unpick at this point. So just worth noting that while it does look lower, and I'm not saying, and I guess this isn't to say it isn't lower or that there isn't a potential for it to be lower, but it's just saying be cautious. It is not necessarily as much lower as option 1, because there will be distributional elements here that will mean that some of those costs will still lie where they currently, or where the cost is incurred. So I think I just want to make sure that you've got that level of health warning that's put in front of that one as well before you start getting too enthusiastic about options just because they look like they're the last ones on the graph.
Thank you. And we've got a question from Councillor Cameron.
I just want to summarise my understanding, please, then thank you for your commentary. If I look at option 1 and I look at actual combined option 1, our costs are about 5,500 at the moment, cost per property. Is that correct? Have I got that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So when I go then to the comparison of all the other options, and if I take out this uncertainty business, which I still sort of haven't really grasped, but maybe not, we're going from just over 6 to just over sort of 4,800. Is that correct? Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hamish?
Stuart, is it fair to say if I'm focusing on figure 8, and I'm ignoring the actual numbers given so many caveats and assumptions, but what I'm seeing from figure 8 is that some of the options are more likely to have economies of scale than some of the other options, and then there's just kind of a full stop, because if you want to take the individual numbers, I think you'll get swamped by the assumptions and the criteria. But using the same criteria across all, it's pretty clear that some of those are more likely to have economies of scale than others.
Yeah, I think that's a fair takeaway, Hamish. Is if you look at, I guess we talked about those likely and unlikely efficiency bands. If we look at the top band of those charts, that lightly shaded one, and you look at how thick it is or how big it is in proportion to the rest of the graph for each of those options, you'll see option 2, whether it includes Waitaki or not, has a much bigger band there. So what we're saying is ultimately that the scope for efficiencies there is probably greater than it is in, say, option 3, and options 4 and 5 also have quite a significant, a relatively thick band in terms of that likely efficiency band compared to the broader options. So I think that's probably a good way of interpreting that data, is looking at those efficiency bands and comparing them to the size of the combined option. Because we could assume that if it becomes more efficient, that those efficiencies should be shared relatively evenly across most of the ratepayers.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson has a question.
I'm looking at the interest, because we've heard a lot about how different councils have more debt than others, and the blue line across all councils looks to be relatively similar per household. So, am I reading that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think, remember, these are combined options, so that's going to be, I guess, skewed somewhat by the scale of all these organisations, and you're bringing a number of them together, and some of them include the same council. Well, they all include Ashburton, for example. So it will be skewed a bit, but you're right, they all have relatively similar interest costs, which, obviously relates to the amount of debt that's coming through there as well. Thank
you. So we'll head back. I think, is Do you want to go through anything further? You've got Appendix 1. Pardon?
Unless people want to talk about Appendix 1, I don't think that's terribly important for your decision making. I think the only points I probably would raise there is this is meant to be showing the age. We're sort of comparing the relative age of different assets across the potential partners that you're exploring your options with. You'll see there's actually a great deal of consistency among most of the councils there, with the exceptions of Waimati and Mackenzie, who have got what look like relatively young assets. What this doesn't show is the relative value of all of those assets. So while you might not want to partner with a council that has, if we look at, if I was picking on, say, a Waimati Three Waters wastewater, which has got 37.5%, I think it's the lowest percentage in that entire chart, you might say, well, gee, they're going to have to replace all their wastewater assets soon. It's also quite clear when I look at Waimati's totals there that the total value of infrastructure there in Waimati is not necessarily significant in terms of their wastewater costs. So it doesn't tell you the value, and it also does not tell you the condition of those assets. You can have new assets that are in poor condition, and you can have old assets that are in great condition. So but you look at it if you will. But I would suggest that where there are outliers there, those outliers are predominantly the smaller councils with lower levels of asset value anyhow. Also worth noting that everyone probably takes a slightly different approach to valuing and depreciating their assets. Those are the pieces of information that are really important to this table. But unless everyone's doing it exactly the same, then you're not necessarily comparing perfectly apples for apples. It's probably as good as we're going to get at the moment.
Thank you. Hamish, did you have a question?
Thanks, Stuart. And I think this is actually an important table, but the big takeaway for me and perhaps for council is that asset condition, as measured by this consumption ratio analysis, is broadly equivalent across the councils that are included in our options, and so. You can see the highs and lows in individual asset classes, and there'll be all the caveats that you've just explained. But assuming those assumptions even out across all, there's nothing that really shows out. And that is an important piece of information for us, that alone. So this was important work. And Mayor Liz, if I can just acknowledge the contribution from all those other councils in supplying this information, and we asked them at relatively short notice to supply information that would assist us with this analysis, and we got fantastic and very quick cooperation from all those councils listed there. So I just want to thank them for contributing this data, because it did make the table much more meaningful the more councils that contributed. So thank you.
Thanks, Hamish. I've got a question from Councillor Moffat.
There's Selwyn is a glaring omission in that table. What's the story with that?
We invited all councils to contribute, and I've had a couple of communications with Selwyn, but they were unable to provide the information by the time that it would feed into this table.
Any further questions? Councillor Wilson.
I'm reflecting on figure 8 still, and I'm just trying to understand. I see that options 2s and 3s, and they're north and south effectively, they fall into a similar pattern, you'd say. And I know option 1, that's our current state. Option 4, is that because it's a larger urban? I'm effectively looking at their TA costs, which is their costs, which I know they're spread differently across, depending how your values and rates go, but that cost has to be spread across the population base. And it's, why is it so much higher, when you look at it, that number? Because that's the outlier, you'd say. If you've got bigger, you'd hope that some of those costs come down, whereas that one appears to be still high.
And that's Ashburton Selwyn, isn't it?
Yeah, option 4.
Option 4, yep.
It's definitely the urban population there. It's and if you look at right back at the start of our report, the different cost drivers we've got there, it's the things like community development, economic development, culture, recreation and sport, all of those types of activities where an urban centric council is going to spend more money because it's going to deliver a higher level of service. So effectively we're bringing in a whole pile of activities that you expect to be spending a lot more money on in that urban environment, and we're bringing in Selwyn into option 4 in its entirety, which is obviously a significant urban area in its own right, and I think that's really what's driving that increase in cost. So it does look like a higher spend per person for those TA activities, and that's effectively because it is, but you're getting more money, more for it. So worth noting that there is clearly a difference in level of service that you would expect across those activities in those councils.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Wilson.
I'd push back at that. In a rural councils, normally the local sports grounds are run voluntary and they're done a lot lower cost than an urban environment where everything is paid for by the council. So that I just like to draw that. That's the conclusion I would draw from it. If I look at the Smithfields, Ashburton, Hinds, a lot of the sports clubs run them themselves, whereas in Christchurch it's all done by the council. So that must cost. That would, to me, would be some of the costs. That would be the conclusion I would draw rather than the other conclusion. We do have a high level of service.
That's fair, and probably that's unfair of me to say it's not a high level of service. But I guess the point being the councils do bear a lot more of that cost. And in some cases that may be a higher level of service, but in some cases that may just be a different way of delivering that service.
Thank you. Have you got anything further to add? I don't think there's any more questions at this stage from us.
We don't have anything further.
Nothing further. Oh, thank you. Thank you for presenting that to us and for all the work you've done. That was fantastic. We're going to now go through our other 2 reports, so you're welcome to get back to the office if you want.
We will, and if any other questions come up throughout, I'm sure that Tony or someone else can let us know, and we can jump back on if we need to answer some questions, I'm sure.
That would be really helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you. See you.
So Tony, we'll now go back to the analysis reports, or we'll go back to your slides. Carry on.
As you're bang on, we are going to go back to the Phase 2 Options Analysis Report. So that's Appendix 2. That sits as a part of the council agenda. Just 2 slides to take you through here, and then happy to answer any questions on this. So when we left here on the 10th of June with the list of possible options to talk to our community about, we also started thinking about, okay, what further information or analysis is helpful for council to consider as a part of this next phase of the process. We had given you a lot of data, but now we wanted to get back to actually telling the story and the narrative. So we took the approach of sort of working from a macro level and then driving down into a micro level. So at that macro level, we're trying to get that perspective of what the Canterbury region actually looks like and how does it sit within the broader context of New Zealand. And then the next step down was to say, okay, what does Ashburton District as it currently stands, how do we fit within that Canterbury region? And then down to the micro level of each option, how does that fit within the strategic functions of how the district rolls into the Canterbury, which rolls into the nation? So trying to funnel things down to start to give some a different analysis looking across that. As you'll see from the report, Canterbury is large, it's diverse, and it's unevenly growing. The population grew by about 20% between 2013 and 2023, with almost 90% of that growth concentrated in Christchurch, Selwyn and Waimakariri. Ashburton District has a distinct Mid-Canterbury role. We are strongly connected through this concept of the productive plains economy, and that comes through time and again through this work. Freight corridors are really important to us, as are freshwater catchments, as is our agricultural economy, right through to the processing side of things that come off the back end of the agricultural economy that we have. Regionally, Canterbury is relatively resilient and diversified. It's New Zealand's second largest regional economy. Its key strengths are sitting in agriculture, manufacturing, construction, professional services, transport and logistics. You'll see the report highlighted that infrastructure investment has been uneven within Canterbury, but if you think back to what the last 15 years in Canterbury has brought, it does make quite a bit of sense. There's been a lot of Crown investment, has been concentrated in Christchurch, the Greater Christchurch area and the Kaikoura-Hurunui corridor, whereas Ashburton's key investment focus has been the second bridge in local service resilience to date. Social and service pressures do vary by district. I guess Greater Christchurch area has the scale and the specialist services, while our rural districts face ageing populations. We've got some access issues. Housing affordability pressures show up in different districts, and we've got thinner service networks, which is also to be expected based on population. And then as a region, Canterbury has environmental systems that cross boundaries. We've got fresh water, we've got braided rivers, we've got flood risks. Groundwater is really important, also all the way through to hydroelectricity and productive land requiring strong regional coordination. So, what does all of that mean? Essentially, Ashburton District is functionally dual-facing. Our higher order services, such as our regional services, our tertiary education and our specialist healthcare, and a chunk of our labour and migration links, they lean north. While some of our identity, our housing and much of the productive economy is focused on a rural lens and can lean south in some instances. The district is best understood as a moderate growth central Canterbury district. It's neither a metropolitan fringe district, nor is it a clear part of South Canterbury either. The critical option test is whether Ashburton District keeps influence over productive land, water, freight and local voice, regardless of whether the local government structure leans north or south. As the table shows, there's not one magic formula that we can shake and roll a dice and we come out with a clear line of greens. Happy to take any questions on the report if there are any.
Thank you, and it's a good detailed report. Any questions from councillors on this? Councillor Moffat.
Not so much on the report, but people I've spoken to lately have a lot of concern around debt, and I'm wondering if you can just explain to me and anyone who may be here in the council chamber how to look at council debt and how it differs from me taking out a loan to buy a car, for example.
Hamish.
It depends on your car, I suppose, Councillor Moffat. Council takes out debt largely around capital expenditure, sometimes around emergencies in the event of natural emergencies, and does so to spread the cost over a long period of time. So the concept we've talked about from time to time, the intergenerational equity, where people who are consuming that asset do so over a long period of time, so it's fair that they pay their share, and the best way to do that is by raising debt and paying it off over time. Different councils have different levels of debt, and there was some information circulated to councillors this morning to try and show that. One of the things around a merger or a changed shape of local government is what might happen to that debt. And the way I look at it is that on day one, the debt will probably stay with the community that raised it. But down the track, as loans mature and are re-raised, as new capital expenditure needs have to be met by the new council, then the profile of the debt will alter with the decisions of the new council, which is not easily predicted decades sometimes beforehand. So debt is important. It's broadly in line with the capital expenditure that the council has incurred. So where you see a council with low debt, it's likely that they have spent less on capital works than councils with high debt. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have a whole host of new capital expenditure projects and not have the debt that comes with it. Does that kind of help why councils might raise debt? There's a whole lot of mechanics to that process, of course. But to your question, perhaps that's a starter for 10 answer anyway.
I think Councillor Moffat has another question, so Councillor Everest, I'll just get you to turn off.
Sorry.
On it. Thank you.
So you could assume in some ways that a debt level could reflect a council spent money on new buildings, new infrastructure, so their renewals are further off in the future. Would that be correct?
Possibly. I would look at it perhaps more simply that they have simply spent more on capital expenditure than a council with less debt, and that council with less debt is likely to have not invested in the projects to the same extent, but equally they may have found efficiencies, they may have found other ways. I remember back in the day there were a number of projects in drinking water and wastewater where some attracted subsidies and some didn't. Some ratepayers paid a capital contribution to avoid the debt. So there'll be nuances to that general assumption, but it's likely that it's true to a larger degree than not.
Thank you.
Councillor Everest, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor Liz. Just item 2, where is Canterbury heading? Just the last paragraph, I would like some clarity around this. It just reads, this means that future local government options need to be assessed not only against population size, representation or administration efficiency, but against whether they improve Canterbury's ability to manage the regional systems while protecting local influence over place-based priorities. It's probably that last line that I'd just like some clarity
Which
on.
page are you on? 20,
I wouldn't
sorry.
have a clue.
Okay.
Hang on, I'll tell you. Just hang on. Yeah, page 20, Liz.
Yep.
It's the bottom 3 lines of where is Canterbury heading.
That's the third paragraph down, isn't it? Yes. It's trying to recognise the government's intention with SLG is to simplify. It is to simplify, but also still keep our regions ticking. It's why they're not saying you can have 70 odd unitary authorities and get rid of regional councils, because I don't think their intention is that that's going to keep the economy and the country ticking in the view in which they would like it to. And it's also trying to recognise that we're individual councils right now. We like the fact that we have the ability to make local decisions for our local community that are important to our local spaces and places. So it's almost trying to bring together two, in some ways, opposite ends of the spectrum together. It's a tricky
It's
notion.
quite a, I mean, I looked at it, it's quite a key conclusion that you're drawing in terms of the analysis that you've provided later on in the report. So, I mean, if we've got clarity around that, then we understand your thinking.
Essentially it is. It's why we were trying to balance out what we were hearing around the importance of the local, but also trying to understand the New Zealand Inc. context, if we want to call it that, with what's been put forward by the government.
Thank you.
Hamish, did you have a comment?
Just to expand on the reference to regional functions, one of the things that the Minister has been quite clear about is that in the abolition of regional councils, territorial authorities, as they contemplate reform, need to contemplate the performance of what used to be regional council functions. And one of the truths in a very compressed time frame for Canterbury is that while that has been referred to a number of times, definitive work around what remains a regional function and how it should be delivered has not been clarified and agreed across the councils. And there are various views on what remains a regional function as opposed to what might be taken up by the unitary council. And that's one of the pieces of work that is probably, I say lacking, but it's probably underdone in all of this work, because all of this work has been focusing much more on structure rather than the what you'll do when you get there. But the time period has simply not enabled those conversations to happen in parallel to the degree that they possibly should have. And I think one of the things around a Head Start proposal, should council agree to make one, will be acknowledging that further detailed work needs to be done on the delivery of what are currently regional functions. And people talk most often about river catchments and river protection work, but they also refer to biodiversity and some of the harbour master roles and emergency management and some of those things which are broadly accepted as being regional functions, but there won't be a regional council to do them post this reform. So how will the new councils deal with that? And those conversations have been had in general, and to be fair to ECAN, they have tried to instigate those conversations, and they're prepared material to get the brain and the conversations going on those matters. But the compressed timeframe has meant most of the focus has been on structures and who with, not the regional functions. So that remains an issue for this stage of the reform.
Thank you. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. I'm quite surprised by the provincial Mid-North Canterbury Unitary Council being weak in the community support. And there was an indication that Kaikoura was most sort of preferred Kaikoura not to be sort of in the mix. Was that an overwhelming sort of maybe a contributor to why that is so weak, do you think?
Potentially, yes. I think trying to fathom the concept of from the Rakatata all the way up to the northern boundary of Kaikoura felt too geographically large to grapple with. And that was before we heard of Kaikoura's decision last week.
Yes.
So it's a moving feast as we're going.
Then, on further reflection, though, I look at the Ashburton District and the Selwyn District, and that also had a weak community support, and so no further questions.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. I was going to ask the same question. Councillor Maxwell.
It's more of a comment, and I know that you can't wake this up right now because we don't know, but I mean, we talk about the regional council's response, roles and functions right now, and here we are looking at a process of standing up our new entities without knowing those functions, because we do not know either what roles we assume what roles are going to be kept on the ground, but what will those backroom functions that could be centralised and how that might affect this. I mean, there is no way to predict this, but it may, again, change the way this whole thing looks depending on how Central pulls it away.
Yes, and just to underline your comment, Councillor, the RMA reform, which is dramatically changing the landscape for resource management and impacting on what regional councils would have continued to do should have they still existed. And that emerged from the select committee process on Monday. And I know Ian and his team and a whole lot of people are doing a whole lot of analysis on what that looks like. One of the things that is clear from what I've read, though, in the day or two since it emerged, is there is no agreed or approved centralised system of doing those regional functions. So the centre, if you like, has not pulled any of those functions into a different body at a national or a central level. So that hasn't appeared in that legislation to the best of my reading. And what is a little unclear is actually how much less consenting, for example, work will be required under the new regime, and we've heard various views of that. So very hard to assess the regional functions in their entirety at the moment.
Councillor Wilson.
I'd just like to go back where Councillor Moffat asked about the debt. It is true that the debt will lie where it sits, but if I look at this building here, the governance side of it, the room we sit in here, any new council would not expect us to pay for this room if they sat in as a council. So there will be debt, and there'll be assets that we have right through the whole, whatever we do, that will be the new council's assets, and they will have debt on them, because if you're a council with no chamber, you can't expect to merge with a new council and then they pay for the chamber. So some of the debt will actually be spread across the whole thing in the first instance. So it's true to say that where the debt's aligned with specific assets that specifically targeted to a group of people. Some assets, some debt will be melded together because it is the new council's debt, not just the existing council's debt.
Well, that may be true. The logic is sound, but I don't know if you can say will be, because any merger involves the discussion, negotiation, otherwise agreement with other parties, and it's not absolutely clear what will happen. And we have heard it from various times, the protection of assets and therefore has to be liabilities and debt is an important consideration for members of the community. Well, you can't have one without the other. You can't protect the asset for one part of the new district but want to share the liabilities that come with it. So all of that is ahead of us. Your argument may indeed win the day, but not clear that'll be the outcome yet.
Councillor Moffat.
The presentation we just had from Morrison and Lowe said that everything is based on the here and now, what we're seeing now. I personally think the decisions that we're going to be making, yes, based on the here and now, but it's an eye to the future. It is for future generations. It is for our children and grandchildren. So when I look at this chart and I see strong, 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 that's where my eyes will go first. And using the Ashburton-Selwyn unitary as an example, two areas that are very important if we do have an eye to the future readiness and economic growth potential, strong for that one. So I'm just wondering if officers could explain to me, with the economic growth potential, which industries are we looking at there? Do you know?
Through the Mayor, can I just clarify, is there a specific option you're thinking of, or just overall?
Including what? Services, manufacturing, agriculture.
It's data around economic growth. And so if you think of Selwyn and the growth of that community, there's going to be construction, there's going to be manufacturing, there'll be retail, there'll be services, there'll be health, there'll be every part of the economy that will be growing differently to other parts of New Zealand or Canterbury because of the urbanisation of large parts of Selwyn, or speed of urbanisation of parts of Selwyn.
And I know we don't have crystal balls, but do these things have a spillover effect? Is that how it works or not? I mean, could we assume that massive growth in Selwyn and, wonderful, strong economic growth potential will filter down to mid-Canterbury?
I think our economic growth has been built over the last few decades on a really strong agricultural sector, and that is likely to continue whether the council changes its boundary or not. I don't think by a council merging with a neighbour that you attract spillover growth that would or wouldn't otherwise occur.
Okay. Are there any further questions on this analysis, or we will move on to the report around the survey? Happy with that? Thank you. So we've got the survey results there. Do you just, you've got a wee overview there, Tony? Or Mark? Thanks, Mark.
So just a quick overview of where we've done community engagement work. So you'll be aware, obviously, that we did a first round of engagement, which was ultimately focused around trying to better understand the community's view of the potential reform, concerns, priorities, and expectations. So we got around 370 responses for that one, and that one showed a sort of a bit of a mixed view of reform. But clear priorities for Ashburton District, and that we wanted to retain a strong local voice, keep our decision making close to our community, maintain our reliable core services, and ensure fair rural and urban representation. So from that also the key concerns focused on that potential loss of identity and influence, being absorbed into a larger entity, and the financial risks such as inheriting debt or losing control of assets. So from that, the overall response was that sort of any reorganisation would need to address those issues and show how it was going to protect against some of those potential losses. So from that, we had a phase 2 survey where we went out for a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, focusing on potential options that you'd identified. We had 848 responses to that, and 829 of those were ranked in terms of ranking the options. Positive response, but I guess as we've sort of highlighted there, we did ask around demographics for the survey because we thought it was important in terms of the information coming forward to understand where that was coming from. Doesn't make it any less valuable, but we wanted to highlight the fact that that it was representative, I guess, of our community. So, in light of that, the responses we did receive were sort of heavily weighted towards our older residents aged over 50, sort of about 70%, and New Zealand European residents and people living in Ashburton urban areas. In terms of the results, sorry. So the overall showed sort of a preference for protecting again our local voice, as I talked about earlier, that influence over local rates and assets, and avoiding large geographic arrangements that might weaken that representation. This slide shows sort of an overall summary of the rankings for all of the options. So option A was the Ashburton Unitary, had the highest first choice option. Option B had the highest number of top 3 placements, so that was the Rangitata Rakaia catchment model. Option C received moderate support, which was the Ashburton Selwyn combination. Option D was the second strongest first choice and the second strongest on top 3, so that was the South Canterbury Ashburton model. And option E received limited support and was seen as too geographically stretched, so that was the provincial mid-north Canterbury up including potentially Kaikoura. And then option F was sort of a range of other options that people might have presented.
And just a note, in the Morrison Lowe report, they had options 1 to 5,
yep,
slightly different to our ABC, so
right,
you can't match them up. Yeah.
Exactly. No.
Yeah.
So in terms of the overall report, so there's a summary of all of that information plus the respondent profile, and also we asked people to assess whether or not they thought including Waitaki or Kaikoura as part of any model was favoured, and that was fairly strong, and that wasn't something that people supported. And we also asked their commentary around why they'd chosen the option that they particularly preferred. So there's several pages of comments in that report.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
It's just with regards to the graph there. So with the survey, you had to actually put down, you've had to fill out, if you did it online, you had to fill out the 6 options. You couldn't just, if you decided you liked 3 of them and hated the rest, you still had to put them down. So I just draw to option F. That's why the green one is everybody, they didn't want as an option, but they had to tick a box potentially. So that anything after option 3 or 4, you're starting to get down to people didn't want it perhaps, but they had to tick the box. That's what I'm perhaps getting at.
There wasn't an obligation to rank every option, but as you'll see on page 3 of the report, or about page 5, I think, in terms of the overall votes, they were fairly similar. So generally across the board, people did rank from sort of 1 through to 6.
I thought the online option meant you had to push it, otherwise it kept making you go back to do it.
Yeah, sorry, you're right with the online option, but the paper version. So we had about it must have been about 100, 150 at least paper versions that would have gone
On page 16, you've got top choice by location, and you've grouped that into where people have said they live. Did we get many submissions from people who lived outside the district? So people from Timaru or Selwyn who just wanted to have their say on our survey?
No.
None at all?
Not that we're aware of. It wasn't specifically a question we asked. It was mainly focused in district, so there might be somebody that responded from outside and chose an inside district, but if there was, it would be a very low number.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, what I thought we might do is start on page 17 and just go through comments. I'm not expecting to go through every comment, but if you have highlighted something or want to talk about that option, that now's your chance. So page 17 has, and there were 204 comments on option A, and they've been split up into groups of local voice and representation, etc., etc. So I just wondered if we'll go through them, and if there's, just stop me on the page if there's something that you would like to comment on, because I think we all appreciate everyone who filled out the survey and took the time to put these comments in, and I know we were all asked by the local newspaper to give our views when the survey was out, and I know I felt a wee bit uncomfortable doing that because the survey was out for consultation. So anything on page 17, oops, 18, 19. Councillor Wilson.
It's probably the comment that I think comes through from we're looking at this option here. I want local district representation control only. So I think that, to me, that summed up a lot of the comments we're seeing. And this especially this one, people like Ashburton, and I don't think there's a person in the room that doesn't like Ashburton as it is, but I probably would just, when I see those comments, I think, yes, but the Head Start programs is forced upon us. So as a council, we didn't instigate it, but we're trying our best to fulfil the needs. So that's why I read those comments and I think, I agree with you, but I have to temper it with that other thought.
That's right, yep. Thank you. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. So I just want to make a wee comment too. I expected this one to be way and above higher than any others. So in some ways, you've almost got to say, well done, everybody, because you obviously listened to what DIA was saying. You've skilled yourself up and realised that probably simplifying local government isn't about everybody turning into a unitary. So, I think, I just wanted to say, well done.
Page 21, and I just pulled out a comment here. These decisions are hard when we as non-councillors have very little detail, and I think we've probably been the same. We've just added more knowledge the more we have met and spoken to our neighbours. Page 22, 23, 24. Councillor Cameron.
There's quite a lot of comment on local voice and local representation, and I think, as we discuss later, I think we need to appreciate that local voice and local representation will be paramount to our view of the success or otherwise of the selection, and I think we just need to keep that in mind.
Yep, thank you. Page 26. '27, and a lot on similar lines. Go through to page 30, 31, and we have that comment there from Murray Anderson, and good to note what happened when the last amalgamation happened between County Council and the Borough Council. Ashburton actually instigated that change, so good to note that. Page 32, 33. There's a question there on page 33. Worry or a comment, I'm worried about possible reduced funding to our vital services, Safe and Canterbury, Citizens Advice Bureau, all the agencies that ADC fund, so that's a fair comment. Keep going, 35. Councillor Cameron.
There's a comment on page 32 about our local identity, and I think we view ourselves as a unique community, and we want to retain our local identity, and I think that's also very important to be aware of that, and to how that can be preserved in any amalgamations or any unitary.
Yep. Thank you. Page 35. There's a few comments about this building and what the future will look for it. 36, we're up to rural identity, page 37, quite a few comments on the opposition to the reform. 38, Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. There's quite a bit of talk about assets, especially around the street as well. I was wondering if maybe Mr. CE, you might want to make a comment about how things will progress and talk about assets as down the track and any other comments you might want to make around that?
Yes, there's a natural tendency, I think, for each district's community to think about its own assets and want to protect them, and that may be achievable in negotiations to form the new council. One of the things to keep in mind, though, is that there may well be assets in one of the partnering councils that would benefit the new district more evenly, and one of the risks around a focus on protecting assets is it will almost certainly hold up the integration of the new council, but it is a very natural thing to want to do. People are proud of what they have and what their council has put together, and so they want to protect it, and it may be on day one that will be something that each council will want to do, and it would be understandable. But I think some of the lessons from 1989, the last big merger of councils, was that in relatively short order, the new council has to turn its mind to assets and liabilities in the best interest of the new council and efficiencies of that merger, and they'll start to question the arrangements that might make sense to the former councils going into the amalgamation. If there are to be economies of scale, and if there are to be efficiencies gained from this reform, then the new district will have to think as a new district. If it tries to, let's say, we were part of a merger of 5 councils, it will not be efficient to continue to protect all the nuanced arrangements, including assets of those 5 councils, in perpetuity. So a natural inclination to want to protect, and it needs to be done carefully. But I think it's probably better to think, how will these assets benefit the new council in total, because other councils and other communities also have assets that might be able to benefit the wider area.
And fair to say the same goes for infrastructure. I dare say we've all heard about concerns that Ashburton's been very good at keeping things up to date, and I think we're probably reasonably lucky. The sort of research that I've done with neighbouring councils is that everybody's sort of pretty much done their best, and there's not too many glaring warts to speak of.
Well, that's what the consumption ratio analysis showed us that Morrison Low did, and I know they caveated that with all sorts of conditions and assumptions, and fair enough, because they had to do that in order to produce that report in that sort of time frame. But it didn't show any glaring anomalies, that piece of work. And I think to an infrastructure councillor, if you take a many decades view, infrastructure will have its time in each council at some point in that length of time. And even if yours are or ours are in great shape on day one, the time will come when they'll need maintaining, and we might be very grateful to have a different group helping us with that. But the price of that might be supporting someone else's asset condition or community or project needs before we get our turn, as it were. So it won't be straightforward, but I think a broader view of assets and liabilities is probably going to set the new council up better than a narrow protection approach.
Thank you. So page 39 is the last page of option A. Go to page 40, which is option B, and this is the Ashburton Rural Selwyn, so the catchment option, I call it. So we'll go through those. So there was 110 comments on that, mostly on the rural focus alignment. So any comments? 40, page 40, 41, 42. 43. 44, the top of 44 was quite an interesting comment around catchment-based approach to environmental management and service delivery, and especially water quality, and I think that's why this option was put in the first place. Page 45, 46, Councillor Wilson.
Top of 46, whilst my preference will be on retaining the status quo, I know this is not the preferred option long-term, so option B is a good stepping stone with reduced risk. I think that felt summed up the theme of quite a lot of people. They saw that we couldn't stay as our own, so they thought, well, this is the next best option because it sort of keeps us as one and takes a few other bits in. So that I felt that was quite a good comment, and it summed it up sort of.
Yeah, thank you. Page 47, 48, 49, 50, and again another comment on top of page 50, economy of scale without having a large metro force dictating to us ratepayers. So that was a bit of a theme through that. Page 51 is option C, Ashburton with full Selwyn, and there were 65 comments on this. Most of the comments around the growth opportunities. Any questions on, or any comments on those? Page 51, 52. I saw one on 52, the comments about a rural voice being overruled by large urban areas can be used in reverse, with urban voices being overruled by rural voices. Option C, page 53. There's a comment there. It is very irresponsible of government to ask local councils to undertake this proposal with so little info. The attitude of do it or else we will potentially leading to shambles. In capital letters, yes. Page 55, 56, 57, and then page 58 is option D, the Ashburton and South Canterbury option, and there were 188 comments on that, and with the most being on natural geographic fit. Please stop me if there's any. Page 59, similar to our current electorate, so fits together nicely. Page 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75, and now we go to option E, which is the provincial Mid-North Canterbury comments. There was 16 comments in total, and the most were about strong rural Canterbury. And one of the comments here is keeps Ashburton as a major voice with a population of significant scale. Page 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, and then on 83 there's alternative proposals, and there were 30 comments on that. Page 84, 85 and 86. Thank you. We'll now go back to the item 8 in the agenda, and if councillors want to discuss any of the options, and we do have a recommendation there that I will take in parts. Councillor Cameron.
After reviewing the comments and thinking about a few of the options, I just couldn't see it in the document. What is the growth of Timaru in terms of population? What's their forecast?
I can find you the exact figure, but when we looked at the phase 1 analysis showed that when compared to Ashburton, the South Canterbury councils are all growing at a much slower rate.
Yeah,
than
or they
what
were
we are.
declining? Was Timaru
No one's declining, but they are, particularly your two smaller councils of Waimati and Mackenzie, they were growing relatively slower, and Timaru was slower again than Ashburton.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to representation, I know we cannot anticipate what that will look like, and we don't know, we can only propose. Do we have some sort of, I have seen it in the options, the graph with the little bubbles underneath, like we would need to do some sort of, before we select an option or options, we need to do some sort of analysis and have some sort of negotiation in advance to see how that's going to lie, that representation work. And I know that's on page 43, and we discuss that later, do we? Or
Through the chair, what we've got up on the slides here, this is just a repeat of what we presented to you on the 10th of June. So it just showed under the current representation rules that we work under how representation could look for each of the options. Representation will absolutely be a key part of any option that you did decide on. It would be up to the negotiation, I suppose, with whoever you do decide ending up amalgamating with. But certainly some of the options change the representation compared to others.
I suppose my comment, I think representation is probably, if not the only consideration, because everything else falls under representation, It is certainly a very significant consideration. But my comment would be, once we highlight, we say, well, we're going to merge with, I'll just choose something ridiculous, Nelson, which isn't even an option, just to stop any anticipation. Once we say that, then that's out there, and we don't have to, we have to take what we're given, so to speak, with regards to representation. So there must be and I know you've alluded to it in the report, there's like a way to back out or reduce our commitment to a particular option. That sort of a question.
Through the Head Start proposal process, Council may want to have a discussion around what are some aspects of negotiables that absolutely are critical to the success of that option succeeding.
So we would go to a particular partner, if we're going to become a unitary, and we identify a preferred option, and we would say, this is our expectation of our relationship, we want this, this and this, and these are non-negotiable. Is that how we go approach that? In a nice way.
Do we know yet?
Look, ideally, and time is a Guinness, but ideally, we would be having conversations with the likely partners in the reform and agreeing what representation looked like for the new council, and that would just be simply then included in the Head Start proposal to the government.
Okay. So
that would be ideal.
Okay.
But the problem is we don't yet have a preferred option, and the Head Start time frame is now only a matter of weeks away, and the opportunity to reach agreement on that and a number of other matters is starting to get tight. It may be that council could achieve that with its whatever the preferred option is. It may be that you have to signal that there's more work needed in that area. It may be that we signal that until that's satisfactorily resolved, we can't absolutely commit to this proposal, and that may mean that the proposal gets rejected by the Crown. That's the risk of that. The other, I think there's two other things to bear in mind around representation. Representation is broadly an outcome of population. Broadly an outcome of population. And so over time, I think you can expect to think about representation as roughly proportionate to the population of your new district. And so some options have different population spreads than others, and that would be a pretty strong indication of how Ashburton's local voice may be expressed around the unitary council table. The second thing, however, is that the DIA in particular has invited councils in their proposals to propose bespoke arrangements to ensure that local communities are adequately represented in the new council. So it's not all about how many councillors would come from Ashburton. It's about how else might the people of the Ashburton community be represented in a new system, and the invitation around examining things like local boards in Auckland, the extension of the community council system, what might delegated authority look like for communities, what might they be able to decide themselves and not have to look to a central or a bigger council to resolve things and tell them where they are. So representation is, I agree, is critical, but there are various ways you can think about it for the new entity.
And my view is that we are here representing the Ashburton District, so we have to maximise the opportunity for Ashburton to be well represented and our interests be served in this new unitary authority, whatever that may look like. And so however we can position ourselves to do that, I think we should do so. Yeah. And whether we do that as what you said, Hamish, you said it can be negotiated, so smaller, because we are smaller, for example, than Selwyn, and we're smaller than Timaru, so that would...
Yes, no, I agree completely with your rationale, but just bear in mind that each of the partners with which you are contemplating merger has exactly the same driver.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
So when you talk about non-negotiables, you've got to be very careful what you mean, Because does it mean if you don't get X, you'll walk away from a
Well,
merger, or does it mean just do your very best to get as close to that as you can?
I think the latter. If we have a preferred, because I think a lot of the commentary that you went over, Mayor Liz, in detail, alluded to sort of almost like a resentment of the hurried nature of the negotiations, the hurried nature of the legislation, and how we don't have, like, we still don't know the full cost at ECAN. We know that we rate $9 million in this district for ECAN, but we don't know the full cost of where it's there's a lot of unknowns. So there is a lot of resentment, but I think if we can position ourselves as best we can, acknowledging your commentary, then we need to do that, because I'm not here representing Timborough, representing Selwyn. I've been elected to represent Ashburton, and I think that's what we have to be really clear on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis.
Good afternoon, everyone. We know more now than we did when we went out with this process. We know Kaikoura have made their decision. Looks like Waitaki are favouring coming north, which changes my thinking a little bit. Do you think that survey put out with those known things may have altered some of the feedback and comments we got with that?
Tony?
Possibly. I suppose the more you know, then the different you can interpret things. But it's one of those things we'll just never know, unfortunately. We have gone, in comparison, we've been relatively prompt with our timing, and so perhaps that is catching us out at this point.
Yeah,
Russell,
thank you.
yeah.
Also, we just need to remember also one of the key criteria around this amalgamation, one of the key focuses is local voice. And it's tricky, and I don't know which way's better personally. I mean, we go north and there's just us joining 2 councils, and say maybe we get 4 voices. Is that stronger than us just having 2 voices if we go south and amalgamate with 5 councils? So I don't know, and there's so many unknowns at this stage. It is very difficult, and I know that doesn't help anyone. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Hamish?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just hearing Councillor Harris talk about unknowns, and of course at the time of the survey, Kaikoura and Waitaki were unknowns, but the other unknown, right in the middle of our region, remains Christchurch. And I think one of the difficulties of this reform is understanding what may or may not happen in and around Christchurch, and that remains an unknown now, as it has through this process. So there's another piece of information that may or may not have a different outcome if that was known, both for the community survey and for councillors' considerations.
That's right, and when we looked at those different options, we made some assumptions that Christchurch may expand its boundary, and we also made assumptions around Waitaki and Kaikoura, so yeah.
And some of them are mutually exclusive. If Christchurch expands its boundary south, there is no merger with Selwyn as it currently is, and so that whole option doesn't. That's right. It doesn't exist as it was asked at the survey.
Councillor Wilson.
I just have to respond to that. If a decision has total certainty, it's not a decision. So there will be uncertainties with this process. But from that, would I be able to make the recommendation, one, that to perhaps move us through, because we're almost heading to debate. I wondered if we're starting to debate things that we haven't actually put up as a motion. So,
well, I'll just see if there's any questions. The first recommendation is to receive those reports. So you've got a question, Julie?
I actually had one more comment following on from Carolyn and Russell, if that's all right, about representation. And that is, personally, if you're trying to negotiate with 5 councils, that is going to be a lot more complicated than negotiating with 2 or 3. So, you may have more leeway, more ways of getting what you want if you're negotiating with a smaller number of potential partners than a lot. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Councillor Everest.
Thank you. To me, the issue of representation is minor. And I say minor because actually it'll fall out anyway, because everybody wants to maximise their representation, which actually means that you actually have to fall into the average. So I think that is the small issue. It's not about us; it's about our community, and it's about what's better for the region at the end of the day. And so I think it's the other bigger issues that are way more important. And Hamish alluded to the inadequacy, I guess, of the data in terms of what our role would be taking on the regional council roles, particularly. I think it's easy to think about what the roles are within our existing TOs and how that might all fall together, but it's actually the unknown, the big unknown, in my view, is in terms of the roles and responsibilities we take on that we don't currently have, and how we're best to actually make that happen and function well within, for our catchment, our community and our region. And they're the challenges that I see that we just don't have the information for at the moment. It's really hard to, I might have my own view about how that might happen, but actually that's going to rely on a lot of others having a similar view to me. And everything's right so long as you agree with me, Mayor Liz, but if we don't, we're going to fall out.
Thank you. So we are kind of moving in and out of between debate and questions, and I'll use my discretion to allow that for this part because I think the discussion is really important. But Councillor Wilson, I am happy to take that first recommendation. Yes.
First recommendation, the council receives the information including ADC Simplifying Local Government Phase 2 Community Engagement Report, B, SLG Phase 2 Scenario Assessment, 3 Morrison Low Head Start Pathway Ashburton District Council Report.
And a seconder, Councillor Gilkison. Any debate on that? I don't think there would be, but I'll put them up. Councillor Wilson.
I think we currently think there's a comment, a view out there that we haven't got enough information. We've got a lot of information here, but it goes to my first comment that you have to make a decision sometimes with some uncertainty, and this is one of those times that we perhaps need to make some with uncertainty, because if we have total certainty, we'll never make the decision. So that's why I think these reports have been quite good. There is some areas which I disagree with and I agree with, some I wasn't sure of, there's some I've learnt some new stuff, but I think they should be filling a lot of gaps in.
Thank you. Speakers for or against? Councillor Moffat.
I think there will always be an element of uncertainty, particularly with this situation that we're plonked in the first time since 1989. However, I think if we do have a little bit of leeway time-wise, then we should take it. We should use every moment we've got, because I've heard from many members of the community, and it's in those comments in the report, so many people are saying, this is a ridiculous time frame. Council hasn't had enough time to digest everything and so I think make the most of every moment we've got, and if we do need to extend that, extend it.
Councillor Cameron.
I certainly support that view as well. I think there's a lot more, and there's a lot of councils yet to decide what their preference is and who they want to form a unitary with. And I'm thinking about our large neighbour to the north, and I think that what falls out of that may be of significance. We don't know. So I personally would totally support that if we can do that.
So I'll put the motion that we receive the information from the 3 reports. All those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have got, is there any more discussion on the different options that anyone would like to have now, or any questions on those different options before we go look at recommendation number 2? So, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, can I ask recommendation 2 is taken in parts? Because obviously if we put down, if option F is put, it actually knocks out all the other options as it's almost the superseding option of all the rest. If we delay an option, option on, I'm just concerned that we jump to F. If we take them in order, maybe can we do that as parts so that we can then see whether we want to do, or how would Mayor Middleworth like to do it?
Yeah, if you're looking at yes, I'm trying to think of this because if we go through in parts, if we say yes, we want option A as our preferred option, it's done. So I think if you've got any other suggestions on recommendation 2 around if you wanted to remove any options, probably now's the chance to do that.
Yes, I would like to remove some options, and I've listened to the debate and I've listened to the people in the room, so I'm not going to go for the one that the jugular straight up. I thought if we looked at effectively, if we looked at option 1, which is council remove option B, Rekitata Rangitata Rural Selwyn Unitary option for simplifying local government. And the reason I've put that one forward is because that one there doesn't fit into the criteria of any of the Head Start program. We don't have another council. It looks like we don't have another council in those 2 areas which would support us in that one. So I think it's a want to have, but not a could have. So I thought if we removed that one at the first, that was my reason for that.
Is there anyone that would like to second that motion that we will remove option B? Councillor Hooper?
Thank you.
Okay. Debate on that. Councillor Moffat.
At this point, I'm against removing any options. As I said earlier, we've still got a little bit of time up our sleeves, even though we may be pushing it a bit. I think we need to wring out any possible bit of information that would come through within the next week, couple of weeks. So I'm totally against ruling out any options at this stage.
Councillor Cameron.
This option B, requires a sort of dissecting or cutting up a few areas that are not likely to be achievable. Have I understood that correctly? Through you, Mayor Liz, to Tony?
Yes, that's right. I don't think either the Timaru district or the Selwyn district are consulting their community on these changes in this option.
Yeah, so that means it's unlikely to be accepted by the DIA as a reasonable option.
I don't know that. I think it's unlikely that you'll have the support of Timaru or Selwyn to make such a proposal.
And I'm asking another question, but we could, for example, get the support of the mayor or the council in Selwyn, no, not Selwyn, because it involves Christchurch, to put this proposal in with them. The councils don't have to approve that are uniquely involved in the proposal, do they?
They don't, but I'm just going to read something that was in the paper that the Canterbury Mayoral Forum has recommended that the Canterbury councils adopt a coordinated regional approach to developing a Head Start proposal. And for me, that's no man left behind. So I think we have to be very mindful of, it's almost like a jigsaw where all the puzzle pieces have to match up.
Yeah.
And yes, Ashburton is our top priority, but as a whole, the Canterbury region needs to be
sort of coordinated.
Yeah.
Bearing that in mind, although this was option B was a popular option with the community, I support Richard and Phil's motion to remove option B.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Just wondering what happens with this option if Christchurch come out and say they want urban Selwyn, so Rolleston, but not the rest of it. Does that then make this a viable option?
Tony?
Through the mayor, potentially.
Yeah, that would be my only concern with dropping it. It suddenly, otherwise, we're going to have a district that spreads from, Dunsandel, Arthur's Pass, right down to Palmerston in the south possibly, and it's just starting to get even further expanded. So that would be my only concern.
Thank you. Councillor Todd?
Thank you. I just believe we need to start making decisions. We need to start narrowing the field, so I support the motion.
Councillor Everest?
I too support the motion. I think it involves, unfortunately, subdividing off an area of South Canterbury, which is not going to happen. And so, whilst we may, Russell, have an issue with Selwyn that may get split, that is actually covered in one of the other options that we've got available as well.
Thank you. Right of reply, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I agree with the people that obviously talked in support of this motion, and I think the big one to me is that it doesn't fit within the program, and the Canterbury-wide mayors, even if Christchurch does come out and say what it wants to do, it struggles to fit within that program because we've got souths that aren't going to fit. So we need to put up options that actually fit within a wider Canterbury context.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye. Against? 2 against. So that's carried. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
If I may, I would like to look at option C, which is the Ashburton District and Selwyn District Unitary Council. And what I'm basing my potential motion on is, if I look at the voting from the people that put in, it was one of the lower options put forward. And if I look at the work under Morrison Lowe, the cost of those ones, it appears to be a higher cost model from a rating point of view. The bar graph that Morrison Lowe put out, it had, of the 6 options, it was higher, and it appeared to be because that the council's overheads were, some of those, they talked of a higher level of service, which led me to believe that their view of the world is different to ours, because we would look at perhaps spending less but communities doing more. So I'd like to put the motion, if I may, that Council remove option C, Ashburton District Council, Ashburton District and Selwyn Unitary option for simplifying local government.
Councillor Gilkerson, would you like to second that? No. Okay. Is there a seconder?
I will second that.
Councillor Cameron will second that. Councillor Gilkerson.
Can I make an amendment?
Yes.
The amendment I would like is that instead of going one by one saying what we don't like, I'm going to actually go for the jugular and say I would like to put up option D, Ashburton and South Canterbury, to go with that option. I don't know if we can amend that way.
That's
but
not an amendment, sorry. That would be a new motion, new recommendation. So
okay,
I do
then
have
I will
a
speak
mover.
against the motion because I think I'd rather speak about this positively. I think going through every single one saying, I don't like that, I don't think that's a good use of our time. I'd rather just go for the jugular, lay it out on the table. What do you like? Where are we best going to see what we want to see?
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion of removing option C? Councillor Cameron.
I speak in favour of the motion. I think when we first talked about this a couple of months ago, when even though it seems a long time ago, it's no time at all, the advice we got was look for like-minded communities, look for things you have in common. And I feel with urban, and I'm thinking urban Rolleston, Lincoln, West Melton, those where a lot of the people, I think one of Tony's reports said 50% of those, nearly 50% of the population work and live in Christchurch. They're a little bit dissimilar to how we live and work, which is primarily a provincial focus. So I speak in favour of the motion.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. I speak in favour of the motion. When you look at representation, there would be 9 reps from Selwyn, 4 reps from Ashburton with the graph that was put up in front of us earlier. I don't think that's a good mix, and people I've talked to, representation is right up there as far as one of their biggest wants. And also, as far as the people's voice go from our latest survey, only 86 people had this as their first choice. And as far as top 3 preferences go, this ranked 4th. So that for me says.
Councillor Moffat.
I'll try to keep it brief. So first of all, addressing the survey, I was quite despondent when I saw 70% of the people who took part in the survey were age 50 plus. 50% were aged over 65. I don't know how much, and no offence because I'm in that age group myself, I don't know how much people in that age group are actually thinking about the future direction of mid-Canterbury. And again, referring back to the table we saw before with those two strengths for Selwyn, the economic development and the other one which I can't remember. So the growth opportunities. Thank you, Councillor Gilkinson. So I also would like to address representation. For South Canterbury, yes, there's one more mid-Canterbury councillor. So instead of 4, which you would have with the option for the Selwyn Ashburton, you'd have 5, but that's in a mix of 5 councils. I would say we would have far more negotiating room with 1 council than we would with 5 councils. As far as the rural-urban thing goes, well, we know that rural Selwyn has a huge focus on dairy, which this district has. They also have a very similar interest as far as catchments goes and flood prevention and water quality and things like that. So, as Councillor Gilkinson said earlier, very much been looking at the negatives and not really focusing on the positives for a lot of things. So I will end my monologue now. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I also speak against this. I'm interested Councillor Cameron supported this when just before she said she'd like all options left on the table and more time to consider them, and now we're in the process of eliminating 2. I agree that North it's a growth area. Why wouldn't we look at going somewhere where there's growth? Huge rural area to it as well. 2 milk treatment plant companies, another large irrigation scheme, very rural focused. That rural voice is still going to want to have a big say in the decisions of their district. So I would hate to cut this option out at this stage.
Councillor Todd, you've taken your light
Yeah,
off.
just for me, just a point of order. I actually said I'd like more time to consider, not more options left on the table. I think I said I'd like more time to consider.
Okay, noted. Councillor Todd, did you ever speak in for or against?
I speak in favour of the motion. If we sign up with Selwyn, we are up against the fastest growing town in the district. So I fear domination, and I've always believed that Rolleston belongs in a greater Christchurch.
Thank you. So the motion has been moved that we remove option C from our options. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour, aye. Against? So I will... Councillor Everest, did you abstain? Oh, you haven't had your light on either. Would you like to ask... So we're 5-4. Let's just show of hands for that, please. So those 4. Those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against. 2, 3, 4. So that is carried. Councillor Everest, did you have a question? Okay. I am going to, just to move this along, sorry. My light's on though.
My light's on. There's 10 people, so how can it be 5-4? Isn't there 10?
Because there was an, Councillor Everest abstained.
Oh, you did abstain.
Yes, thank you. Just to move this along, and I'm aware of Councillor Gilkinson's question before, but I feel, so from the 5 options, we have now removed 2 options. We have 3 options left, which are option A, option D, and option E. And I feel that those options do depend a lot on what the other Canterbury councils are going to decide. And in our paper, and I'm just trying to find which page, there is some timelines there which have, Tony, can you help me with what page that was? Sorry, I think it was 43. Yes, it is. Bottom of 42, 43. We have all the Canterbury councils and the dates in which they are going to make their decisions, and many of them are next week, some are the following week. The last being Selwyn District Council on the 5th of August, Christchurch City Council making a decision on the 4th of August, which could have a huge impact on what our decision is. And so for that reason, I would like to move that council delays its decision on options until the 5th of August, once additional information as requested at this meeting can be provided, such as the positions of the other councils. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Speakers for or against. Councillor Wilson.
I speak in favour of this because we clearly have a division in the council, so that would give us more time to discuss it and perhaps come to look at each other's views and come to a more consensus decision. So I fully support this.
Councillor Gilkerson.
I speak against this purely because in the essence of time, we don't have time, and I think when the last decision is made, it's the 5th of August, and then we have 4 days to put forward some sort of a proposal. What I would like to test is if there is an option that already gets us across the line, because we've been busy saying things we don't want, but actually, like I said before, it'd be good to just get some, what do we want? Because I think we just wasted a whole bunch of time. So I do appreciate that there are some things that might impact our decisions coming forward, but also there is an option where maybe it won't.
Councillor Ellis and Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Just because I'm watching it online, just for the benefit of people at home, could you please read out the 3 options that are now left in?
Oh, yes, of course. So, sorry. Option A, which is the Ashburton alone unitary, standalone unitary. Option D, which is the Ashburton South Canterbury, including, I don't know whether that's including Waitaki or not, it will be. And option E, which is the provincial North Canterbury, so that is Ashburton, rural Selwyn, rural Waimakariri and Huranui, on the assumption that Christchurch City expands their boundary. And Kaikoura has gone north.
Yeah, thank you. Look, with that, as Councillor Wilson before, I believe Ashburton is a standalone unitary, and the cost associated with that has so little chance of getting across the line. I think here and now we should also exclude that option, even though it was one of the most popular. Realistically, I believe there's very little chance, and then we're getting very close to where Councillor Gilkinson's coming from, that we're getting very close to where we could make a decision.
Councillor Cameron.
Do you want me to? I've got a totally different remark. Do you want to follow on with this?
We're on debate for this recommendation, which is to...
I feel the recommendation is not complete, because when we did the survey, there was an option F, which was other options, alternative options in the survey, and that's not up there. There was the other one that we got 7 respondents to, or 11, I just can't recall without going back to it.
So this is related to the recommendation in the report. Option F was options that other people have presented that at this stage you haven't signalled that you want to investigate any of those particular options.
No, but I think with regards to Councillor Moffat's position and perhaps Councillor Gilkinson's and perhaps other people, that option, I think the other options gives us some flexibility in case Christchurch come out and do something different, or Timaru do something different. Like there could be I don't, unless it's not prescriptive, like we don't necessarily have to choose 1 or 2 or 3, like there might be another option that presents itself in view of, because we're essentially waiting to get more information and to see what the rest of the community do. But we are, I think an option F, which we had in the survey, is.
I think it's compatible.
Okay.
Because you've ruled out some.
Yeah.
They're gone. You're saying these ones need to be delayed. If you had a maverick option emerge that everyone supported,
and that's in there essentially.
Then you could do that because you haven't ruled it out. All you're saying in terms of the options that have been analysed is you want to delay a decision on these three.
That's great.
And the other two are gone.
I just didn't want to, preclude us and give a really prescriptive scenario when that may or may not be realistic. Thank you.
So the motion's up on the board. Debate. Speakers for or against that. Councillor Moffat.
I don't really see how you could do an option F because that wouldn't have gone out to the public for them to see. You're talking about a new option that comes out of this.
Yeah, I think Hamish has addressed that question.
Okay,
so I think,
sorry, right.
Yeah, we're okay.
So in light of the most future-focused economically development proposal being taken off the table, I will back Councillor Gilkinson and just let's make a decision today.
So, speaking against the motion, so Councillor Todd?
I'll speak for the motion. I see no harm in delaying the final decision until the 6th of next month.
Councillor Everest.
Thank you. Firstly, I support Russell's view in terms of being bold and actually removing the Ashburton unitary. So I don't think that's an option. But in terms of the motion that's been promoted, I'm going to speak against it in that I think we need to be proactively sorting out who we're going to work with, and actually this is actually not necessarily saying we're going to go out and proactively sort out our partners, but we're actually going to wait for other people to make the decisions for us. So I actually think it's a mix of two combinations, Madam Mayor. I'd be supportive of it if we were actually actively going out and talking to the other councils in those ADE, but if we're actually just going to sit and wait and see what other people are doing, I don't support it.
And we will be proactively speaking with them, and we have been. I'll get you to turn your light off, Councillor Everest, and go to Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Yep, I speak in favour of the motion. I'd like to hear what Christchurch City is doing, but also I'd like to hear what the Timaru Council is doing and the outcome of Waitaki joining them or not. So that's not a done deal as yet, as far as I understand.
Councillor Cameron.
I speak in favour of the motion for the same reasons that Phil has identified. I think it's important that we know, and you said it yourself, a mayoral forum wants to do a Canterbury-wide submission, or we have to, so I think that we can't do that until we know what people are thinking and where their preferences lie.
Councillor Ellis, you're speaking for or against?
I speak against the motion. If we're all waiting for everyone else to make a decision will never be made. If everyone's just waiting to see what everyone else does, we've ruled out going north, basically. We've laid our cards on the table. I don't see how Waitaki now is going to affect the decision. If they choose to come north, well, we've already ruled out ourselves going north. We're going south pretty much regardless, unless we go the very large rural Huronuri way. I think we need to show some leadership and let our community know what we're really thinking instead of just waiting to see. And the only option left on the table is Y for us, so we'll just take it because we weren't brave enough to make a decision. That's not a good look for leadership for me and our community.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. I'd like to just within debate mode, I think the reason that I put forward that we removed the Selwyn option was because Our community had spoken we didn't want it, so I thought that was where we were. And from a governance point of view, we're not was it 9-3? It's 200,000 people in a few years' time. We're 2-9, so our representation would disappear. That's what worried me the most. I think in making a decision, the worst decision we could make is by one person or the mayor having to cast a vote if she decided to do that. In this level of thing, if we could take a bit more time, we can discuss it and come up. I think saying that the north one is an option, we don't know if Huranui's even wants to go with this yet. They haven't come out. So we do need to understand where Huranui's thinking even. They could go to Marlborough for all we know. We don't know, and we don't know what Christchurch wants. And there is enough time to hear what they want, and I think it would be good if both sides can actually, if there's two distinct views on it, it does give us time to listen to each other's views and then come up with a coherent and well thought out decision.
And just to note, there is a mayoral forum meeting next Monday, and there's also a meeting with the Southern Councils next week as well. Councillor Maxwell.
I speak for the motion, and I think we have to wait until these decisions are made, even though people want to make some today, because we can't go ahead and say we'd want a provincial north, mid-north, without knowing where Christchurch sits, because otherwise you would strand, because it says provincial, we would strand some of those towns on their own. And so we need to know where Christchurch sits in all of that, because if Christchurch just wants to be Christchurch, that takes that option off the table, and we can't make that decision without knowing what Christchurch would like to do.
Okay, I'll allow the debate because
sorry, I know this is...
Councillor Wilson had a second round, but I will stop at Councillor Moffat.
Can I just make an amendment where, if this passes, that we allow Ashburton Selwyn back in? Because I think it's unfair to strike things off as if we're going to vote everything and then stop right there because we want more information. But actually, Selwyn is our neighbour to the north, and that is a big factor. So I think that if we've struck it off, but we're still waiting for information, it just seems backwards to me. So I think that if we want to delay, we need Ashburton Selwyn back on the table.
We'll just check standing orders in relation to that motion has been passed. So I don't know that you can amend it because of something you do here.
We haven't voted on it,
but there
though.
will be a process.
Oh, that has been.
We voted
Yeah.
on the removing the
Yeah.
But there are other processes available to you, which Philippa might be able to comment on, or Tanya. I'm thinking notices of motion. I'm thinking the way in which you might alter a decision already made. So there will be a way for you to bring that to council, just whether you can't just automatically do it as a condition of this.
And if this motion passes the 5th of August, that will trigger a special council meeting because our next council meeting is not until the 12th of August. Councillor Moffat.
Just one comment on everyone's talking like everyone has huge control over the outcomes of what's going to happen. The fact is, in the end, we're looking at a proposal. The proposal has to go to Cabinet and be signed off. So no matter how much effort we put in here and talk, it's still only a proposal. And the fact is that we've already been lumped in with South Canterbury, who've put us in their proposal really without our say-so. So, it's like nothing, a lot of things are not in our control.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'll just comment finally before I put the motion. I feel this is the fairest way of going forward, and I understand, yes, show leadership, make a decision now, but I actually don't think that we would make a decision that would be fully supported by council. I think our views around the table are very similar to the views in our community, where most people are quite split and have their own personal reasons for wanting to go north, wanting to go south. Personally, I would love to stay as a unitary council. it would make things really easy and we could move along quite nicely, but I know that the evidence probably doesn't stack up and it won't possibly won't get over the line with DIA, MCERT and the ministers, even though we have been told by some ministers that that would be a good option for us. So that is the reason why I have moved this motion. I feel that we have had a lot of discussions with our neighbours. I've spent many hours on the phone speaking to our neighbouring mayors, finding out what their views are and looking at this sort of as a Canterbury as a whole. And that's why I'd like to move this motion. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against. Thank you. Carried. I think we might just break now for a cup of tea. I know there's a couple more recommendations, but I think a 10-minute breather would be good. So we'll break for 10 minutes. Thank you. We're still on item number 8, and I just have a question for Tony and Mark. We have a recommendation there, which is number 3, and that's to work with relevant parties to prepare a Head Start proposal. Is this now relevant now that we've just decided to pause until the 5th of August? No, it's not.
Through the chair, no, it's not.
Okay, so we can move to the 4th recommendation, that council confirms its key matters for negotiation with councils involved in that option. And I don't know if any other councillors have had a chance to think about this. I've got a couple listed down, but I'm happy if you want to take out or add to any of these. And I thought our key matters would be representation, assets, debt, rates, LTP, and also an off-ramp if needed. Councillor Cameron.
I totally agree. I think the first 3 should be representation and then representation, then representation. And then I think the off-ramp is quite important, and the impact on the ratepayer is of course very, very significant. And also our ownership and stewardship of our strategic assets. Like, how are we going to handle our strategic assets in our community? Are they going to be ring-fenced or protected? I know we're doing some work around that at the moment.
Is there anything else that councillors would like to add, or is there another suggestion with that?
Could I just make one comment in terms of rates? The comment in the report in relation to rates was more around time it might take for a new council to harmonise or rationalise rates, as opposed to understanding the impact on ratepayers, because we cannot fully calculate that given the decisions of the new council aren't yet made. I'm just saying that because our experience previously around council mergers, if you go back to 1989, was that very different rating systems came into new councils then, and the new councils were grappling initially with the inefficiencies and duplications of administering 5 different rating systems for the new council, and everyone agreed in time that couldn't persist. But of course it has significant impact for some ratepayers, and so what was really needed was a time frame. And I think I'm thinking of an example in the North Island I was familiar with, where they agreed that harmonisation was important, but it should occur over 10 years, so that the impacts for individual ratepayers in different former districts was minimised over that period of time. That was the sort of thing we were thinking about when we included that comment in the report, rather than just understanding impacts on ratepayers on day one. It was more around, is there a strategic position this council would like to take around things like harmonising rates and how they might be shared over time or rationalised over time.
Councillor Ellis and Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Is it more important to have representation across a wider district, or some form of bespoke model where Ashburton District, as some form of authority, whatever that may be called, can make decisions of its own without having to go to the wider amalgamated council? So yeah, I'm looking at some form of bespoke model where, as a community, we can make decisions around maybe even rate setting for our district over a longer term of time. I can see that being watered down, but initially, but certainly around our own infrastructure assets and those sort of things, having a model that we will make those decisions for ourselves, I think would be quite an advantage.
Could we put that under delegations, or is that too broad? So representation and delegations, or something similar to that, is that too broad?
No, we certainly could.
I understand what you mean, Russell. Yeah.
Is it more like if there was local boards being proposed, or local district authorities of some description, is it more likely they would be focused on things at place, so that the things that the community has in a particular place. So it might be facilities or amenity values of the place. But possibly infrastructure is going to be more efficiently managed across the new district. And so particular activities of that local board, may not focus on infrastructure as the previous council did, but may focus on those things where there's perhaps more amenity or sense of place that each district may wish to invest differently in, perhaps.
Are there any others? So at this stage we have representation, assets, debt, rates, LTP, bespoke. How do we?
And Chair, I think we could just say that representation and then in brackets including bespoke arrangements.
Yeah.
Because it's all representation.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Everest.
I would certainly like representation based on population, because I think that's the driver.
So that could be under the bespoke arrangements that.
No, I want it there as a.
You want it, yeah, okay.
We've got to be realistic here.
Yep.
We're not going to get 90% of the vote and have 10% of the population.
So on bottom of page 43, top of page 44 is some matters that council have, that staff have indicated could work. Councillor Everest.
I had a couple of others. I totally support Hamish's comment in terms of the harmonisation or enterprise analysis or a 10-year lag or whatever, but there actually has to be that, and we've used that sort of tool in the community already with various mergers and acquisitions. So to me that's got to happen in the short term, and that's a huge help for the community in terms of acknowledging what's happened in the past, or other communities in terms of what they've done as well, like our partners. The other part that I look at in terms of that is rather than assets, I thought it was sort of key assets and infrastructure, but I'm happy to run with that wording if we have to. But the bit that we haven't addressed is actually what I've called the roles of current regional council, and that's nowhere to be seen. And I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not specific in that, and I know you're going to nail me back, and that's a fair call, but I think it needs to happen, and that's one of the key things that I think we've got to be able to sort out. I don't know what that is.
So that's current, what do you call it, regional council functions, even though regional council won't exist, but we could say regional council functions. Okay. Anything else to add, Councillor Wilson?
I said when I see debt and assets, I think we talked a wee bit earlier on about it. It's overhead allocation to me, because when I look at assets, we can say this building is a fantastic asset of Ashburton, but if a new council says we don't want it, it's a fantastic liability because we've got the debt to pay on it. But if the new council goes, yes, we want to use every bit of your office space here, and it's paid for by the greater everybody as a overhead allocation, and we can put the debt against it, that's not a win, but that's a great outcome, because the building's used for what it's meant to be. The debt is then covered by a wider area. So just some work done on how that this assets, sort of investment assets, but then there's other assets which everybody will have. Some libraries will be better than others, some pools will be better. A lot of those assets are actually common assets across everybody. We don't want to suddenly say that's our pool until it gets worn out, and now you can have our pool, because we don't want to do it up. We want to be careful what you wish for.
Councillor Cameron.
Things like we have our community survey every quarter, and we get feedback on what we need to work on, and we're really trying to improve our roading network based on that feedback. So we've committed X amount of dollars to our roads. Will that be prioritised? Is that what that means by the long-term plan? Is that what that means on page 43?
Yes, not specifically, but includes that type of thing. The intention around the comment around the LTP is that we know we're preparing LTPs with an uncertain world, and I think it would be unrealistic and will in fact hamstring a new council to take 5 LTPs if that's what the merger is, and so you have to do everything in there for 10 years and not receive any of the economies of scale that Morrison Lowe referred to, because you're trying to run 5 different systems just now with one group. But perhaps there are some things that are more important or more time critical earlier. And so one of the comments I heard from another council was that they were taking into their negotiations that the first 3 years of their LTP, as finally adopted by that council, needed to be delivered by the new.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the sort of transition type of thing where you're giving the community some certainty in the early stages of the merger, but over time you have to trust that the new council is going to make its own decisions.
Yeah. And that would be based again on our representation that the new council would be given the feedback of what this community needs and around the greater council table or whatever, however that's going to be structured. So that's where the representation, Councillor Everest, I think is paramount. But so I think the long-term plan priorities then are important because they do highlight to our community, you know, what we've agreed and what we're committed to.
Yes, and my only comment would be the longer you insist on things being the way they are now, the more delayed economies of scale or efficiencies will be.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt that 3 years
was a nice
sort of sweet spot for perhaps
that's right. And in the life of a local government, like in the life of Ashburton District Council, 3 years is not very long at all. So it seems that would be a reasonable sort of thing, I would have thought.
Okay, Councillor Everest.
I want clarity around the commitment to the LTP, because we could put anything we like in there and make that unreasonable for the next group. And we're already finding that when we're going through the long-term plan discussions that we're having now in terms of what the last group wished for, but was it affordable? And that's can we afford it? The bit that we haven't got up there is the transition, enterprise accounting, harmonisation, whatever, but somewhere along the line we've got to transition from where we are to where we're going to be, and we end up being fully married, and maybe initially singles in different rooms, but we've ended up in the same room.
100%, and the transition is a complicated and big thing to work through. The reason we focused on the rate system, though, is that's how the community essentially are impacted by all that, those transitional arrangements in large part. So all that transitional work will have to be done. How it impacts people is via the rating system, and so that's why rationalisation of the rating system, which will lead to different levels of rates for different groups of ratepayers across the 5 councils, and that can be quite dramatic. And I'm still remembering councils that merged in 1989 that had such vastly different rating systems. Some people's rates would have doubled, some would have halved. You know, dramatic effects of trying to have one rating system across the new district. And so they took a view that they had to be done carefully and over time because of those impacts.
Councillor Moffat.
I think it's along the same vein as that, but a transition as far as IT systems goes, I mean, that's going to be massive. So negotiating how that merger or change, because some may just fall by the wayside, I presume.
100%, and I think most of those decisions are going to be the new councils. There's a lot to do getting to day one. You will not be able to have a fully designed and rationalised organisation out of all the current systems on day one. That would be, in my view, unachievable. But what you need to do is do the things that are most important, and then accept that the new council will have the challenges of sorting a lot of stuff out. You can't do all that in the time you have before you start up a new organisation. And one of the things that is in the back of our mind is all the very different arrangements and terms and conditions for staff. They vary greatly across each council in the Canterbury region. So what does that look like for day one of a new council? And so some things have to be done and will be the focus, and some things like computer systems, you can plug in on day one and work out what you'd want to do, perhaps. You won't have all systems aligned and merged on day one.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Todd, and then we'll go to this recommendation.
Yes, I agree with the list up on the with key matters. But when you're negotiating with other councils, there'll always be compromise, and that's really where you're at.
Yeah. And Councillor Ellis, can you see the recommendation on the screen? Is that? I'll read it out.
No,
if that.
Thank you. No, you can't when you're watching live.
Oh, okay. No, that's all good. I'll read it out to you.
It's just one bit that needs to change. This is that option. It should be any option.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That council confirms its key matters for negotiation with councils involved in any option or an option. Yeah. Are representation based on population, including bespoke arrangements, assets, including shareholdings, infrastructure, investment, community, debt, rates, commitment to years 2 to 5 initiatives in the long-term plan, and water, what's it called? The water strategy, services strategy, 2027 to 37, and regional council functions.
Before you move that, May.
I'm just reading it out. Are there any additions?
Yeah, there's an amendment. I don't believe we discussed based on population. I just think Councillor Everest just said it should be based on population.
You're discussing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm discussing it now.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I'm a representative of Ashburton District Council. It may be based on population. It may be based on funding. It might be based on area. Who knows what it's based on, but it's based on something to our best advantage for our community, not based on the number of people we have in our district. And I personally think that should be removed. A representation, fair and reasonable representation, or whatever you like in that way, that's fine, but we have to be looking to how we can maximise our opportunity for representation.
And I think when I put up those initial words, it was quite a high level so that things could fall in underneath and we'd have a wee bit of room to move. But how does everyone feel? Would they like to have based on population? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Ultimately, I think that decision will be taken out of our hands, and I think it will end up being on population. Just remember, most of our negotiating power we've taken away from ourselves because we're now down to only 2 options of other councils, apart from us being a standalone, and we're going to wait till everyone else has made a decision, so we'll just join who sort of ever wants it. So most of our negotiating power we've actually taken away from ourselves, I believe.
Anyone else want to comment on the based on population? Councillor Hooper.
Initially, I agree with it because I think you could have a whopping great area size-wise with very little population, and they could end up having more say than us. So I agree with the population.
Okay, Councillor Cameron.
When we look at all the models of representation, based on population, we've looked at them. We've looked at the Timaru, we've looked at North Provincial, we've looked at all the models. Based on population, we are disproportionately, well, we won't have a fair suck of the sab, if you like. We'll have a fair suck of the sab, but we won't be advantaged. And it depends on what your view of why you're sitting around this table is for. But we are sitting around here to represent our community, not to roll over and say, oh, we're happy to accept. You know, we have 37,000. Timaru alone is 57,000. So why are we sort of rolling over? Are we not debating?
No, we haven't moved the motion yet.
Well, I'm going to have a question at the end, but this is it now. Why would we concede that prematurely based on population? That seems a foolhardy and narrow-minded thing to do at this stage. I would leave it open and do the best we can, whoever's in our negotiating team, to do the best they can on our behalf.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
I just think if we can have, that's the minimum that we would accept based on population, and any better than that would be a win. So if we can have that as a minimum, representation as a minimum, and then try for the better.
If I may just add a comment. there is some limitations to this. If we were in a merger, say, with 4 other councils, I imagine each of those very small councils would want at least 1 rep on the new council. And it won't have anything to do with population, it won't have anything to do with size, it'll have everything to do with historic identity. And that will drive an arrangement on day one that people agree to. Over time, I'm sure that population will become more and more important, and that's the way the legislation, in fact, is set up. But in establishing a council, you may find that a limitation of population in the best interest of the new council may well limit the ability to reach ready agreement.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Gilkerson, and then I'd like to get this recommendation underway so that we can move on from item number 8. Councillor Gilkerson.
Yeah, I think that we can remove the based on population. For me personally, when we go to the next phase, I would like to see actual reform rather than what we have now but bigger, which means thinking about things in completely different ways, and it should obviously be fair and reasonable, and it will be as a new district. If it's done correctly, we will still represent our communities and hopefully become more effective.
So if we put in there fair and reasonable representation, including bespoke arrangements, would that cover if we needed to, if we went back to population at a later date? Happy with that?
I would be happy with that.
Yeah, okay. Is there someone that would like to move that very quickly?
So quickly, this will be the work of but a moment. Top of page 44 in our report, we did refer to water delivery as a potential matter for discussion as a key attribute. We're very aware that there is a range of mechanisms of delivering water service post the local water done well reform across the Canterbury region, and it's almost inevitable, other than the standalone, that we will be merging with councils or rumps of councils that have water services being delivered in a different way to ourselves. Is that a matter that you'd like some discussion and negotiation at the front end, or do you just leave it as it is and let the new council resolve it?
Councillor Cameron.
I read on Stuff or somewhere that Michelle Pye mooted and supported a name in Timaru, I think it was Central Water Services or something, or rather, and the comment attached to that was that would suit Ashburton. So, you know, if they're assuming we're going to go with them, so are you suggesting, Hamish, I'd like some, I mean, if we can keep are you suggesting we can keep an in-house business unit if we say merge with Timaru or merge North or merge with Nelson?
So we could put water services.
I'm suggesting it might be a matter you want to negotiate and discuss with the other councils. You'll be aware of the 83% survey in our community that wants an in-house business unit.
Well, if that's, yeah.
Yeah, all I'm saying is it might be a matter that you want to discuss with your partners you're merging with, or if you don't, that's fine, the new council will just resolve it.
And would that not be in our long-term plan, or they have their own water services delivery plan, so that runs alongside our long-term
Well, the work program will be, but I don't know that you could construe the long-term plan to be protection of a particular structure.
Well, I think obviously that needs to be written. Absolutely.
Water services delivery to that. Councillor Todd, happy with that? Is there anyone that would like to move that very long recommendation now? Thanks, Tony, for typing it up because it makes a difference so we can see what that means. Councillor Cameron, you'd like to move that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Todd, second?
Yep.
Debate. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, carried. Well done. Thank you. That was big discussion. Hence the whakatauki at the start of the meeting. We'll now move thank you Tony and Mark, to item number 9, which is the adoption of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategy 2026, and we have Femke up here. And that report starts on page 205. And Hubert, you're going to join us up the top. Councillors, are there any questions? I just had one amendment and I'm just trying to find it. Sorry, there was just something that I thought on page 219 you have got a list of the facilities and you have the Mount Hutt Encounter and Hall of Memories. I just think that should be changed to the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall Encounter because there's no encounter up at, well, there is up at Mount Hutt.
Yes, thank you. We'll make the change. Apologies. Yeah.
Otherwise, are there any questions on or comments on the strategy? Feels like it's a long time coming. No, if not, there is a recommendation on page 205 that we adopt this. Councillor Cameron, would you like to?
It would be a great privilege and pleasure to be able to adopt this strategy. Thank you.
Councillor Moffat.
Yes, ditto. So I think it's a sign that the arts and the farming culture and the multicultural nature of this community are being recognised. Arts and culture reflect who we are, and we're treasuring our heritage so we don't forget where we've come from. So it's a great thing to adopt.
Thank you. Speakers for or against? Right, a reply, Councillor Cameron?
No, I think Councillor Moffat did an excellent job. Thank you.
No, good. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is the Civic Art Collection, and this is a gift of a painting by Kath von Tunzelmann. We've got Sarah and Hubert there, and got the report which also has images and dimensions of the artwork. Are there any questions for Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. 3, if I may, please.
Yep.
Do we have any idea of the value of the piece?
Hubert.
Galleries and museums don't usually value items, so the short answer is no.
Okay.
If there's an insistence, we'd try and get it valued.
No. It's just be nice to know we're adding to our collection, and it's all part of this.
I appreciate the question, and it's you're not the only one who asks, of course. But,
right. Good. Phew. How desperately does it need the work done on it?
It is not particularly desperate. It's reasonably stable. It is just as soon as we can get to it and funding allows. And it's not a huge amount of money in terms of conservation practice normally. So it's just ensuring that its long life is assured.
And was there anything behind the donation? Was there any message sort of with it?
Nothing.
No.
Through the chair, nothing in particular. No.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
I think it's wonderful to have a piece of Kath's in our civic collection, as she was a local, well-known local artist and very nice lady, and actually married to a pharmacist, so very nice lady. I have a concern with regards to that foxing on the image. Is that a thing, or is that just the photograph?
Excuse me.
The sort of the rusty sort of marks on it. Can we get those off?
Foxing, through the chair, foxing can generally be removed, but the process can be halted, and sometimes a very light bleaching, but in terms of watercolours, not really recommended. It is just to stop the process from
okay, so that would be in your conservation of this piece?
It would be, absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I also support the gifting of this, but my question is, what's our policy around displaying council's artwork? You know, if we accept the gift and it just goes into storage to never see the light of day, I think that would be disappointing for our ratepayers. So I'm just wondering, you know, what our thinking is around displaying council's artwork.
Through the chair, my understanding is that Gallery 0 upstairs in Rokofiria is the one that's designated for displaying council works from time to time.
And in addition to that, depending on the glass and the suitability, it can be part of the rotation in Te Whare Whakatiri also.
Thank you. So we have a recommendation there on page 249. Councillor Kimmel, would you like to move
I'd like
that?
to move the recommendation, thank you, and also the conservation of this piece.
Councillor Hooper, second.
Mhm.
Any debate? If not, I'll put Councillor Todd. Sorry.
Thank you. I support the motion. Kath was a very gifted artist. Her specialty was flowers, and I can share that we have a couple of her works hanging in my land at home, actually. So I know Kath from a long time ago, so she was quite a lady.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ellis, did you want to speak to the motion? Sorry. Carried. Thank you. Item number 11, gift to Civic Art Collection, a painting by Nancy Waller Baxter. And we have the recommendation on page 256 and an image of the painting on 262. Councillor Ellis. Did you have a question?
No, sorry, it wouldn't turn my hand off, but I've managed to do it now, but I support this.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to move the motion?
Happy to do so.
Yeah. Councillor Todd, second.
I'll second.
Yeah. Any debate, Councillor Todd?
Thank you. I think I can share that this isn't Midlands Dairy and Buchanan's Flour Mill. If you go out the back here and through the council car park and look across the road at St Vinny's, the new building, this painting is the old St Vinny's op shop, basically, and the back of two shops on Victoria Street. And if you look to the left and right across the road is where Campbell's Cake Kitchen was. So just as a little bit of history, that's where we're at. No.
Very good. Any further speakers for or against? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye. Carried, thank you. The next item is item number 12, and Councillor Moffat, this is your conflict, so I'll get you to just push your chair back. So you cannot thank you. So this is privately funded art on council land, and we've got a couple of do you want to speak to this, Sarah?
Yes, certainly. So we are in the fortunate position of having two different, an organisation group and an individual who are willing to fund art and artworks on and they're proposing that it happens on council land. This doesn't happen too often, but when it does, they're quite unique in terms of the circumstances, and as the past has shown, we haven't had the structure of, I'm going to say, formal agreements with the parties and conditions about who, what covers the future maintenance. There's been understandings, but nothing documented. So we see this as an opportunity to tie up loose ends to set a better way forward and also enable such offers to be acted with in a prompt fashion. So our recommendation is to seek approval from council to get delegation to the Rokofiria Director and also the Chief Executive, and this is a joint and only when they agree approach. The rationale behind that is there is different skill sets. Clearly
to this, to my left.
Do you mean two people that love art? Is that what you mean?
Two people that love art, two people, one possibly more trained at loving art than the other, and in terms of council-wide, there were so many parts of the organisation in terms of land use that having that oversight of the CE, our legal responsibilities as a property, as a landowner, not wanting to curtail future decisions. We just thought that was a really good and strong combination. So this is our way forward, and then if this is agreed, we will do the necessary work to make sure that we can chat directly with the parties that are interested, and that is the Art Gallery, Ashburton Art Gallery Incorporated, and also Justin Skilling, who is the other person willing to fund art. Their criteria, well, I should say council's criteria and reaching an agreement would be key to us saying yes. So, but that's how we see it happening going forward as well. We need to, have some conversations and work out exactly what looks best for council, and without any sort of, without full knowledge, that's really hard to do. So hence the recommendation, and that probably sums it up. And if there's questions, happy to answer them.
I've just got a question. So the Lou Summers sculpture we've got just out here, that's, you have a photo of it and it says that it's still owned by the Ashburton Art Gallery Incorporated and they maintain it. So would that be something that you would look at? So even though it's on council land and it's owned by the Art Gallery Incorporated or Justin Skilling, they would maintain it for the life of it being there?
Yes, that is absolutely the intention of having the agreement, so that from the absolute outset we know that from a council perspective who's responsible for the future upkeep and costs, especially with regards to the artwork proposed in terms of the car park, I'm going to say on Kath Street, I think that's the name. That is a temporary artwork potentially, and again we've got to go and sharing that information as we have with Justin, because it could be sold in the future. We don't know, so we don't want any artwork to curtail council's decisions going forward, but at the same time it's an opportunity to bring vibrancy, colour, attraction, and within the areas that council does own. So let's have it something great for as short or as long as possible. So that was the rationale.
Okay, we've got some questions. Councillor Cameron?
So part of this approval, which I support, would be like a censorship type of thing. I mean, I'm not talking about our local artists, but say we had some national, paint the wall exhibition and people were coming down and there's all sorts of things. We would have some sort of, we may not be able to have certain subject matter emblazoned on our walls or whatever. That would involve some sort of censorship from the Chief Executive and the Rockafria Director.
Yes, we have listed on, I'm going to say, page 266 and 267, yes. Criteria, and one of which is suitability in messaging. It is artwork on council land, so what is in a private domain is clearly private decisions, but ours has a higher threshold.
Councillor Wilson.
How many of these artworks a year would you have?
Well, like I said, we have had 0 for a period of time, and now we've got 2. So, but it may have been through promotion of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategy. It may be just a complete and utter fluke that 2 have arrived at the similar timing, or we may get more. So we don't know that, but historically there hasn't been many.
And my second question, if I may, is I totally agree the council shouldn't be, all the councillors shouldn't be involved, but the mayor should be involved. The one person who's elected by us all, who will be involved and will give the democracy sort of, and the mayor of the day will make a decision, and that's fine because they're our leader, but it shouldn't be us because, I've no artistic talent at all, but the mayor, I thought.
You saying I do have artistic
talent? No, what I'm saying, the mayor
I've only sold one painting.
Probably my reason for that is if the piece of artwork is a dynamic, modern, huge sculpture of something, the mayor will have been involved in the decision and they will have confidence to talk about it in a manner, whereas if the chief executive and that they've got a bent for fascist murals out of Indonesia or something, the mayor will then have a difficult discussion to have.
Okay, thank you. So we have we have a recommendation there in two parts, and that is around the delegating authority to Rockefeller Director and Chief Executive to enter into any agreements. Would you like to make an amendment to that?
Amend that to Council Delegate Secretary, Rockefeller Director and Chief Executive and Mayor to accept.
Councillor Gilkison?
Second it.
Second that?
Yep.
Okay. So any debate on that first recommendation? I'll take them in parts because...
I think, yeah, the addition of the mayor makes sense in terms of, you know, 3 people can settle a debate.
Councillor Todd?
Yes, more than happy with the recommendation. If it was left to 10 councillors, you get 10 different views, I would suggest.
Thank you. I'll put the motion, so that has been amended to add the mayor. All those in favour, aye. Thank you, carried. And the second is the Loco delegations register. So I don't think can you add the mayor to that delegation, or does that just have to be? You can. Okay, so you would add the mayor to that as well. Would someone like to move that, if you're happy with that? Councillor Maxwell? A seconder? Councillor Todd? Any debate? All those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Julie, you're welcome to come back to the table. Thank you, Sarah and Hubert. Next, we are on item number 13, and this is the Clearbrook subdivision and the naming of the road. We have Brad and Ian coming up. And this report starts on page 277 and has got a map there of where the road will go. Anything to add?
No, nothing further to add.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Gilkison?
This might be a wider question, but how often do we review our naming policy, our road naming policy?
Through the chair, I'd have to have a look at the policy. I don't have it directly in front of me at the moment. I'm not sure. Yeah. My colleague's looking it up. It was renamed. Oh, sorry, it was redone a few years ago, I think.
I'll go to Councillor Ellis's question and in between while we're waiting for that answer.
Thank you. I did have a similar question around our policy, because it seems now that developers of the subdivisions are picking their names. Do we used to name a road after a mayor that's been before, and I don't know whether when we last did that and whether that was ever a policy council had, but the role of mayor, I think, is very important, and to have acknowledged that somehow by a road naming, to me, seems quite a nice thing to have done. So I just, once again, whether that fits into our policy, I'm not sure.
Good question. We're just finding when that policy...
It's reviewed every 5 years.
Yep.
And Tony, when was it last reviewed? Sorry?
Thank you. It was reviewed in 2023, and it's up it's on a 5-year cycle.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, through to the more recent question. Generally, developers will select names that that are important to them. There are a criteria that they have to be relevant to either the history of the district or some significant feature of it or something else. So there does have to be relevance there. Obviously, a former mayor or elected official of the council would be very, very appropriate to have.
in the past, the council selection has generally been when they have done developments themselves. So I believe the council have selected names for the North East Business Estate in the past. That was the one that sort of springs to mind most recently. There may, depending on what happens in the future around the Ashburton Second Bridge, I presume there'll be opportunities to name roads there. But other than that, it's really usually the developer that will select the names for private developments.
Councillor Gilkerson?
Well, I think that answers my question, just in terms of how proactive can we be in some names on the back of the heritage strategy that we did. Anyway.
Councillor Moffat?
I'm just curious, boulevard, is it actually a boulevard?
Yes.
You know, and some people, boulevard sounds better than road. Let's call it a boulevard.
Yes, I actually have the definition for boulevard up here. It's a wide roadway, well paved, usually ornamented with trees and grass plots. So it's quite vague.
Is that what this is, though?
Yes.
Okay.
The key to it is it needs to be open-ended. So this subdivision doesn't connect to, it doesn't go right through to between two roads, but there is a road connection so that when the next block is developed, it will be able to continue through.
And I can just add to that, I can confirm that we did have that discussion.
Thank you. So we have the recommendation on page 277. Would someone like to move that, please? Councillor Hooper?
Thank you.
And Councillor Moffat, second. Any debate? If not, all those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And we have our second road naming, which is in the Smithfields subdivision, and that's on page 283. Any questions for that? And again, that's got a drive, a lane, a street, and an avenue. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Todd, any debate? I'll put the motion, all those in favour, aye. Carried, thank you. We are now on page 289 and that's my mayor's report. So first of all, I'll move that we receive my report. Is there someone that will second that, please? Councillor Hooper. Thank you. All those in favour, aye. Thank you. It's carried. So there's a couple of recommendations in there. The first one is around the LG&Z remits and direction sought on support or not for the 9 remits and order of priority. Now, I don't know if anyone has gone through and gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've tagged about 4 that I think would be top. So we'll see how we go. But what I might do is I will go through and just get general support from 1 to 9. And then if you would like them as a high priority, you can let me know through there. Councillor Moffat, were you going to?
I was just going to say, I have prioritised mine, if you're interested in hearing that now.
I think what we'll do, we'll go through each one and you can tell us which one, if it's high or not. So the first one, Priorities for Dog Control Act. Are you happy for me to support that? Just a nod is fine. Yep. Councillor Moffat, is that high on your list?
It wasn't actually. It's probably in the middle.
Okay. Anyone else like that to be high, low? Anyone are you happy for Councillor Wilson and I will be at the AGM next week? Are you happy for us to prioritise if you want to, or Councillor Maxwell?
I just have mine further down the list because one of the comments was or extended microchipping requirements to working dogs, and I think that'd be quite problematic.
Okay, so number 1 will go mid. The second one is the improved regulation of vape retailers support. Yeah, happy to support that one. Okay, and any priorities on that? Councillor Moffat?
That was actually number 1 on my list.
Okay.
I just think that, you know, we're now all, the last couple of years, been hearing how terrible vaping is, particularly for young people. And, you know, I've spotted another vape shop that's popped up and it's bright yellow, you can't miss it. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Do other people have that as a high? Yes, okay, thank you. Number 3, financial support for government reform implementation costs. Support this. Oh, I support it, yeah. How did you have this high on your list or low? Councillor Moffat.
I had that at number 2, looking at where we're at the moment.
Yeah. I had that high too, yes. Everyone else happy with it being high priority? Thank you. Number 4, removal of representation review requirements during simplifying local government. We're lucky we're not in the midst of that at the moment, but quite a few other councils are. Would you like to support that? Either here nor there. Okay, we'll decide that on the day. And not high on your priorities? No. Okay. 5, devolution of place naming authority to TAs. Are you happy to support that one? Yeah. Anyone else happy to support? Councillor Wilson?
Why would I just under that? Is that meaning that territorial authorities can rename towns? Yeah. I'm pretty unhappy with that one because it's it becomes you know, there's quite a process, and if you want to rename a town, and it's across the whole country, and it's known, and you know, you could find Ashburton, we could call it Timaru. We could call it Timaru. We could, and that's, you know, and people go, well, wait, it just worries me a bit that it.
Okay.
You know,
yeah, Councillor Gilkerson.
Oh, me. I do think it needs changing from the current form, only because my mother-in-law is on the geographic board and she's been on there for donkey's years, and all she does is complain about all the people being there for donkey's years. And so I don't think it's productive, is the vibe I get. And they struggle to get people, that they want on it. So I think it'd be better. Like, we'd love to name somewhere in Ashburton, wouldn't we?
Any other, did you have who had that as a high priority or a low priority or mid? No, so that seems sort of a mixed. We will listen to the debate on the day. Number 6, enhanced role for government in supporting subnational diplomacy. So this is around councils and their sister city agreements and support from government. Not too fussed about that, not worried. Okay. Low. Number 7, bulk funding of transport activities. Who do you support that? High priority or not?
is this to do with public transport, or is it to do with, because we have
hard
quite a
to
process,
work out.
and I think where we're going forward into being part of other districts, we have quite a process around funding our roading and stuff, and is this about having a bulk, so then the new council could say, we're going to build a bridge in Timaru, or God knows where, blow the shingle roads or blow the other roads. Is that what it's meaning, or is it?
That's what I read. I thought it was meaning that the project by project justification and the business case you have to build up and approvals that you need to get is quite heavy administratively and slow, and that if there was bulk funding and then in this case of I guess a regional council, but a unitary council had the ability to do within that bulk funding, it would be more efficient. That's what I thought it meant.
So support for that, Councillor Everest?
I read it the other way. I was reading it more, Hamish, in terms of roading. Did I get that wrong?
Oh, well, I can't say you got it wrong, but I read it as trying to improve the efficiency of procurement.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. By the sounds of it, I think we let you listen to the debate on the
Yep.
day and you vote wisely from the debate you hear.
Yeah, thank you. Number 8, which is improving LTP audit requirements. I had this as supporting, yes, and reasonably high. And the last one, a fairer approach to uneconomic transport infrastructure funding. Support that. A couple of nods, no, yes. Okay, we'll listen to that one. Okay. Thank you. And if you do have anything written in order of or your priorities, and you've got all those down, you're welcome to email those through to me and Richard, and we can have a look at those on the day. There's also a recommendation there under Waitaha Health, and really nice to hear that David Matthews has confirmed his availability for reappointment to the board. So he's our community representative, and he has come and presented to council a couple of times since then. So that's really good to have him back there. Councillor Cameron?
I'd like to move that recommendation, please.
Yeah.
And I would also like to hear from him perhaps a little bit more often. I think we don't hear from him that often. Once a year, perhaps at the most, I'd say.
Okay, we can look into that. Councillor Todd, you'd like to second that?
Yep.
Yeah. Any debate on that? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Carried. Any other questions on my report? Had a little break in the middle. If not, thank you. Well, now I need someone to move us into committee, please. Councillor Hooper, Councillor Moffat, all of those in favour, aye. Against, no. Turn the live stream off.